The Assistant. A Bad Boy Billionaire Romance Audiobook. By Michelle Love.
Chapter 1.
Say what? The meeting room, previously full of light chatter as the various executives waited to get things underway, went silent. Brock met Jenny Gray's eyes, the woman looking more defiant than contrite. What do you mean, Andrew Vedder isn't phoning into the meeting? Jenny, a temp worker hired specifically to help out with such matters, shrugged. It means he's not phoning in. Is that a problem? Yeah, Brock said dryly. He's the whole point behind this meeting. We literally have nothing to do here without his input. For the first time, Jenny looked flustered. Oh. I didn't? I'm aware. I probably didn't make it clear. It was all Brock could do not to yell in frustration, but it really wasn't the woman's fault. She was being asked to hold together all the various pieces of his business life, without the benefit of a title, a commensurate salary, or even any kind of training. Maybe someone with the right kind of mentality could have run with the job as a temp and landed a good position with Brock in the long term. Jenny, however, clearly wasn't interested. He directed his look at the silent executives. Sorry for wasting your time, folks. I'll call another meeting in a few days, as soon as I coordinate a day with Vedder. The chatter started up again, as people stood and began to gather their papers, coffee, and donuts. Jenny had at least coordinated those three things well, including the agenda. Of course, the agenda clearly read Edward Vedder meeting, so you'd figure she might have guessed. Brock stifled a sigh and turned to Jenny, who had resumed her defiant stance in the seat beside his. We need to talk. 30 acrimonious minutes later, Jenny was headed back to the temp agency with a generous stipend to make up for the days on her contract she wouldn't complete. Brock hadn't gotten where he was by walking all over people. Be good to them, they'd be good to you down the road, he'd learned. And as she left the building, he entered his office and rolled his shoulders. Jenny had offered some good parting advice. Hire a personal assistant. Some young kid who you train to your managerial style. A coffee getter, paper pusher, meeting scheduler, whatever. But who? Brock wondered as he took a seat at his vast desk, pushing aside the stacks of paper that seemed to multiply in his absence. Bitcoins were the new thing, which was proving to be both a curse and a blessing. All the young kids wanted to get in on them, but no one understood how they worked. It was a perfect storm of the greatest idea on the planet, combined with roadblock after roadblock. For a time he'd managed to do it all, minus outside assistance. But with the sudden surge in interest, all the balls he was juggling were about to come crashing down, unless he got a second pair of hands to help him manage the back end of things. Irritated, Brock grabbed the laptop that was sitting in front of him and opened it, pulling up the biggest job service site in the city. It wasn't how he usually found his employees, but there was no time to waste on extended interviews at this stage. He needed someone, yesterday. Erica, it just makes sense, Megan began, gesturing in the direction of the in and out around the corner, the one they both spent way too much time at. Now Megan was suggesting Erica spend even more time there, wearing a uniform. Shut up. I'm not going to work fast food. I didn't go thousands of dollars into debt to dish up fries. Erica Sampson rolled her eyes. Megan crossed her arms. You're thousands of dollars in debt. Dishing up fries at least also dishes up some money. The words stung, but Erica brushed them off. If I try to pay off my college debt by working at a fast food joint, I'll be dead before my loans are paid. Megan gave her friend a look of disapproval. They'd been friends for years, had recently graduated from college together, and this was the most they'd ever argued. Megan thought that they should both find any job that they could, and start bringing in some money, while Erica felt living in Chicago would make it easy for her to find a job in her field. And she wasn't going to waste her time on a job that wasn't taking her down the road to her dreams of being a successful accountant. Unfortunately, that meant she had been sleeping on Megan's couch for the past few months, and she was just as ready to get out of the crowded apartment as her friend was ready for her to go. She had been giving Megan as much money as she could afford to spare, to pay for her bunking in the living room, but the tension was growing between them. If she didn't get out of the apartment soon, Erica knew their long friendship might not survive. She looked away from Megan, back to the computer, and scrolled down another row on monster.com. To her surprise and delight, up popped Future Enterprises. Urgent, seeking secretary. Look. Here's something. Erica pointed, and Megan came over, sitting cross-legged on the couch with her cup of coffee in her hands. What is it? It's a secretarial job. Not accounting, but I'd rather serve staples and office memos than Diet Cokes. I've never heard of this place before, though. Future Enterprises? Erica looked up from the screen at her friend, who looked just as confused as she was. Suddenly, there was a flash of recognition in Megan's face. I know what that is. The guy's name is Brock Gordon, and he established some sort of Bitcoin bank or something. He's looking for a secretary. Apply. She pointed to the ad, running her fingers across the lines and looking at her friend. In spite of her momentary excitement, Erica frowned. Her stubbornness was both her best and worst quality. I don't know. It's not accounting. Erica, Megan groaned. Are you kidding? It's a major financial firm, so consider it a stepping stone. Not to mention you'd be working for one of the richest men in Chicago, if not the world. The guy's a billionaire. Think of the bonuses. Megan nudged her with her elbow, and Erica hesitated. It's not really the same thing, she started to argue, but Megan cut her off. Apply. It's not a restaurant, and you'll be making good money if you get it. Who knows? He might have something available that you do want to do, but you're never going to know if you don't apply. Megan got off the couch, skillfully rising without spilling her coffee on either herself or the floor. Erica watched as her friend rose, then went back to the screen in front of her. What makes you think he's going to hire me? He's got quite a list here of the things that he's looking for. I doubt a 22-year-old college graduate is going to make the cut. You're attractive. That might help, Megan replied with a sly wink as she walked over to the kitchen, kicking aside a pile of Erica's dirty laundry as she did. Megan? What? I'm just saying. Use what you've got. If you don't have the credentials, use your assets. Megan smiled, then set her mug on the counter. Anyway, you need a job, and I need a shower. And maybe my couch back at some point this century. When I get back out here, I want to hear that you've applied. Yes, Mother, Erica said dryly. Megan gave her another look on her way to the bathroom. After she disappeared from view, Erica sank into the couch with another sigh. Is this really what it's coming down to? My looks instead of my brains? She didn't even believe she was especially attractive. Cute maybe, but certainly not the kind of woman who landed jobs because of it. She had auburn red hair cut close to her head on one side and longer on the other, edgy for a secretary, but she could pull it back and hide the fact she had it short on the side. She was short, but of an athletic build, and commanded the attention of everyone in the room. Erica knew how to work what she had, but she didn't think it would work on a man like Brock Gordon, even if she dared attempt it. Now that she thought about it, she had heard of him, a billionaire in his 30s who had been made rich with a good idea. He was like the next Bill Gates, only better. It didn't matter what she looked like. She'd have to be a celebrity if she was going to rely on anything but her education to get her a job at a place like that. But then it certainly didn't hurt to try. What was the worst that could happen? And after he found her attractive and hired her, then she could put her brain front and center. Right?
Chapter 2.
I just want to know what's taking so long. Who wouldn't want to work for my company? Or me, for that matter? Brock muttered. It had been only 3 days since he had put the listing on the job service website, but he'd expected that there would be more applicants than what they were already getting. We're working on it, but I can only talk to those who have come through, Angie said. It's not like nobody's applied. You're just so freaking picky. She didn't bother hiding her annoyance with Brock. But then no one did. He had the kind of relationship with his employees that allowed them to talk to each other in such a way without worrying about any tension. More should apply, Brock grumbled. I reserve the right to be picky about the people I'm trusting with my company. The next applicant is supposed to be here in an hour, she called after him as he stormed off toward his office. The resume's on your desk, along with her references. Call them and see if they can get in here sooner, he said. He didn't wait for an answer, heading off to his office. As Angie had said, there was a crisp one-sheet resume on the desk and he scanned it. Erica Sampson. She was young, recently graduated, but her various internships had been high-level, with some well-known people in the field listed as contacts who would vouch for her work ethic. She'd graduated with honors, too. Could be overqualified. Could be under. Hard to tell with someone so fresh out of school. He wanted someone who would be able to handle all that he was going to throw their way, but he also wanted someone he could work with. Someone who could put up with him without getting butt-hurt about the way he treated them. He wasn't a patient man. That was just fact. Patience hadn't built his billions. She's here, the voice came through the intercom and Brock opened his eyes in surprise. You said an hour? And you said tell her to get here sooner and she was just around the corner, Angie shot back. Do I send her away? Don't be ridiculous. Send her in. A moment later, Angie opened the door to the office, and just like that, in walked the most beautiful woman Brock had ever seen. He stared in total shock, not sure what he'd expected, but certainly not this. She was petite, with gorgeous red hair cut in a seriously sensual style that somehow made her look both soft and edgy at the same time. There was no hiding the fact that she was in good shape. Her lithe curves poured into a gray suit that couldn't come close to containing that toned body. Then there were her eyes, sparking intelligent blue fire in his direction, and he realized he'd been standing there stupidly, gawking. Hello. Miss Sampson, come on in and have a seat. Brock said hastily. It's so nice to meet you, she said, not nearly as nervous as any of the other applicants as she walked forward. Her stride was sure, and her handshake was firm and steady as their fingers met. Brock felt a powerful jolt of heat, and barely contained a groan. Beautiful and confident? Oh yes. Now if we can just pair that with some outstanding secretarial abilities. Though she didn't know his name, he decided on a whim not to give it to her. He already liked her, and he didn't want to make her even more uncomfortable by finding out he was the man who owned the entire business. Instead, he decided to plunge directly into the interview and see how things went with her. I looked over your resume, and I am quite impressed, he said. She smiled, obviously pleased. Thank you. I have to ask right away, having worked with such high-level companies, why take a secretarial position now? Brock deliberately threw the hardest question at her. He honestly didn't have too many more. In his position, he had learned to judge people on far less than Erica had already displayed. He liked her. He wanted her. In more ways than one, admittedly. They don't have any jobs, she said simply. I could keep working for free, now that I've graduated, but that seems to make the whole degree and gazillion-dollar loans a moot point. He nodded. Fair enough. I realize there aren't many jobs out there right now. Tight market. So you're okay with doing secretarial work? You don't see it as a step down? Erica grimaced. I have to admit, I'm not quite sure about all of this really. Obviously, you know what you're doing, but I don't. They didn't teach us a thing about bitcoins when I was in school. Honestly, it's either this or a burger joint by the looks of things. No offense intended. Brock flashed a wide grin. He appreciated her honesty and added it to the list of qualifications that she checked off his list. Well, if we hire you, I'll make sure you get some accounting experience too. It's a full-time position, and I expect all my employees to be dependable. I don't do late, he said with raised eyebrows. And I was an hour early to this interview, she replied with a small smile. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He liked her a whole lot more than he should. There's no need to pull punches here, Ms. Sampson. I know quality when I see it. Do you have any questions for me before we proceed? How long do you think it will be before I hear back about this position? I've been living on my friend's couch for the past few months, and she's about to kill me in my sleep, Erica admitted. If you want the job, it's yours, Brock informed her, and for the first time she seemed taken off guard. Really? She began. And since I need my new secretary alive, he interrupted, I'll give you the first half of your paycheck up front. Brock smiled at the combined relief and astonishment in her beautiful eyes. Really? Erica said in amazement. I mean, thank you. I accept. I don't even know what to say. I really need the job, but I've never heard of anyone paying up front. You trust me that much already? Doesn't Mr. Gordon need to approve me or something? Brock grinned. I know Mr. Gordon extremely well. He'll approve, believe me. Stepping around the desk, he nodded at the door and walked slightly behind her, restraining the desire to rest his hand on her lower back in a gentlemanly fashion, mostly because then he'd want to slide it lower still. Don't worry about a thing. I wouldn't offer it to you if it wasn't what he would want. The position needs to be filled by someone who is going to do a good job, and I can tell that someone is going to be you. He gave her a warm smile as they reached the door, and he opened it for her. Angie, will you please give our newest recruit the paperwork she needs? He asked before turning back to Erica. You'll start first thing in the morning. Yes, of course. Erica beamed so brightly, she could have lit up a neon sign. Excellent. We will see you then. Only the phone call he had pending drew him away from his new secretary. Otherwise, he might well have stood there in the hallway under Angie's curious, knowing gaze, trading smiles for the rest of the afternoon with Erica.
Chapter 3.
Oh, for Pete's sake. Erica sighed as she ran through the door. Late on the first day. And after I put him in his place, about my being so early for the interview and all that. Oh gosh, don't fire me. She ran as quickly as she could through the lobby of the skyscraper and dashed straight for the stairs. No way was she waiting for the elevator. She ran all 11 flights and almost exploded into the lobby, meeting Angie's irate gaze as she stumbled, panting and red-faced, over to the desk. It's about time you decided to show up, Angie said without a smile. Mr. Gordon doesn't tolerate lateness. Erica puffed and wheezed. I'm sorry. I left an hour ago, but I got stuck behind an accident. You should have left earlier, Angie cut in coolly. Don't let it happen again. He will not be happy. And he had me cut you that initial first half of your paycheck too, trusting you. That's not how we do things here, Erica. Erica flushed, if that was possible, given how red she already was. Angie was definitely not finished raking her over the coals. Mr. Gordon needs his personal assistant here before him. Every day. Clear? That got Erica's attention. I'm sorry. Personal what? I thought I was a secretary. Secretary? Is that what he told you? You're going to be a personal assistant. Angie nodded toward the other side of the room. Go drop your stuff off. I'll give you 5 minutes, and then I expect you to be back here ready to work. Erica wanted to argue, but she knew there was no point. She had been told that she was going to be the secretary, and it didn't matter now what she said. If he had told this woman that she was going to be the personal assistant, she knew there was little she could do about it. Her mind was spinning. She wanted to find that guy who had done the interview and ask him what had happened, but then, she also didn't want to see him again if she could help it. Throughout the interview, she had done her best to keep everything as professional as possible, but she had found it incredibly difficult with how attractive the man was. He was tall, with dark hair and dark piercing eyes. She had tried not to notice his body under his suit, but it was difficult not to. She put her things away in the desk assigned to her, catching her breath as she did. If Erica was perfectly honest with herself, this entire place confused her. She had received a phone call the night before by someone else who worked in the company, and they had briefed her more on how the digital bank worked. During the phone call, she had acted as though she understood everything that the man was saying to her, but the fact of the matter was that she'd had no clue. At least she'd been honest during the interview about her ignorance. They couldn't expect her to know anything Bitcoin related. She'd made it clear she was clueless. She returned to the front desk, ready to begin her day but not sure how her day was going to go. As she feared, Angie was just as much of a pain to her all throughout the morning as she had been to her from the beginning, and it wasn't long before Erica was tired of it. It quickly became clear that she couldn't do anything right, from the way she was handling the phone calls that were coming in, to the way she was handling the paperwork. "If you can't take the pressure, get out," Angie barked at her more than once. Erica was so irate by the time early afternoon rolled around that she was toying with thoughts of quitting, even though that wasn't her usual style in the slightest. That and money stalled the impulse. "Hey, how's it going?" A man's voice broke into her thoughts, and both she and Angie looked up. Erica noticed that she quickly looked down again, but her mind was quickly caught up in the fact that the incredibly handsome man who had interviewed her was leaning on the desk. "Fine," was Angie's one-word reply. "I didn't know I was going to be a personal assistant," Erica informed him. "The job post said secretary." The man lifted one broad shoulder and flashed her a melting grin. "The interview went so well that we decided we'd upgrade the job and the salary." That gave Erica pause. "Okay. I guess. The day just hasn't gone well," she blurted. "At all." "I don't expect you to be perfect on your first day," he said with suddenly raised eyebrows. "Neither do I, and I thought she was doing great." "She's just being too hard on herself," Angie cut in before Erica was able to reply. Erica looked over at her and was about to say something when Angie added, "Don't worry, Mr. Gordon. She's going to be ready for anything by the time I'm done with her." She smiled over her shoulder at Erica, and Erica's mouth dropped open. "Say what?" Mr. Handsome himself was Brock Gordon. Billionaire and internet genius Brock Gordon had been the one to interview her? "You could have told me," she began, trying to steady herself from the shock, and remembering how snarky she'd been yesterday, her cheeks flamed. "I didn't want to intimidate you," Brock said cheerfully. "You're fine. I only hire the best. Angie will show you the ropes." Yeah," Erica muttered totally inarticulately. "See? Intimidation," he pointed out, and she thought she detected an amused smile hidden behind his serious face. She felt like the world's biggest idiot, but he didn't give her a chance to say anything else. "Give yourself some time to adapt. But don't be late again," Brock warned, and with that and a smile that took the sting off his mild rebuke, he turned to go back to his office, leaving both women to watch him as he walked away. Erica looked over at Angie, who avoided making eye contact with her, and decided not to say anything. Nothing about this situation was making much sense to her, but she also didn't care. She didn't know what it was that had prompted him to hire her with so little experience, and she also didn't know why he hadn't told her the day before that she was going to be his personal assistant. But whatever his reasons, she was working for one of the richest men in the entire country, if not the entire world. Suddenly, it didn't matter how hard her day had been going so far. She was Brock Gordon's personal assistant, and Erica decided in that moment she was going to be the best.
Chapter 4.
Brock lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, wide awake. It was a Friday, and he knew he wasn't going to see Erica again until Monday, something that made him less than happy. She had been working at the company for nearly 3 weeks, and he felt that he had done an excellent job of behaving himself around her, however hard it had been. Hard being the operative word. He was a playboy, no denying it. Work hard, play hard, love harder yet. He was honest about it, never leading women on about his lack of interest in anything but some time between the sheets. But he couldn't get Erica off his mind. The outfits she wore were almost more than he could bear, especially when he was in his office and she would come and lean over his desk. It wasn't like she was flirtatious, that might have been better. It was just that slight hint of demure cleavage, the curve of her tight backside in her nicely fitted slacks or dresses. More than once, he had imagined pulling her into his arms right there in the office, forgetting the paperwork entirely. He wondered what it would be like to hold her close, to feel her melt into his touch, to hear the soft catch of her breath as their connection deepened. Yet he also knew that he had to keep things professional with her. It could quickly turn into such a scandal if he didn't play his cards right. Not to mention, there was something different about Erica. There was an innocence about her that he couldn't seem to break through. The confidence she displayed in the interview had fallen by the wayside when it became clear he was the big billionaire boss. Her cheeks would flush when he was around, she would stumble over her words and become visibly agitated, and he enjoyed every minute of it. His alpha tendencies made him enjoy when she was clearly feeling uncomfortable, though he wished she would cut loose and be freer with herself in his presence. She was so innocent, but he could sense that there was something under that innocence that would come out if he could just awaken it inside her. But how to do that in the workplace? That was the one domain where Brock had never made any conquests, with one exception that he now regretted. He kept his intimacy strictly beyond the walls of the office. And yet Erica ran through his head every morning, afternoon, and worst of all, night, to the point where he was becoming seriously sleep-deprived from all his lonely fantasizing. Ordinarily, he would have sought another woman to relieve his need, but he suddenly wasn't interested. In frustration, he sat up on the end of his bed, swinging his feet to the floor and running his hands through his thick black hair. Who was he kidding? He couldn't say that he was looking for the touch of any woman. He was looking for the touch of just one, the one whom he would see again bright and early Monday morning. The one whom he couldn't get off his mind right now. The one whom he would give anything just to have to himself for even half an hour. He picked up his phone, tempted to text her. They had exchanged phone numbers, of course, since she was his personal assistant and at his beck and call. Of course, that was supposed to be strictly at work, and so far he'd held to that. But the temptation to text was growing stronger, and with the glass of whiskey causing his brain to swim around, he didn't know if he had the willpower to say no. Setting the phone back down on the nightstand, he closed his eyes and tried to sleep. But with no luck. Another hour ticked by, and he looked down at his phone once more. He sighed, agitated. As a sudden impulse overtook him, he grabbed his phone and quickly typed the message before he allowed himself to think about it any further. Great work this week. I really appreciate it. He hit send, then looked at the clock once more and kicked himself. Talk about a lame text. And who sent something like that at 1 a.m? She'd assume he was drunk, undoubtedly. His phone chirped, and he quickly grabbed it, suddenly hopeful. But the message wasn't from her. It was from Angie. Just wanted to let you know I still think about you from time to time. I'm sure you're in the arms of some other girl, but I want you to know what we had was special, and I'll always treasure it in my heart. Brock groaned in dismay, regret punching him yet again. About a year before, he and Angie had somehow fallen into bed, in spite of his no office flings rule. No denying she was a beautiful woman, and that was what he blamed it on. That, and his total lack of self-control around the opposite sex. Just like with every other woman, he'd told Angie his intentions, and to his surprise, she had accepted that, and even still chosen to keep her job, even after he got bored and ended things a few days in. Perhaps she'd thought seeing her every day would change Brock's mind about her, and they would get together again, or perhaps she really did like working at his company that much. Whatever the reason, he rather wished that she would just give up on him. Nothing was ever going to happen between them again. He'd made that clear. Probably cruelly clear, but better that than lying. Why couldn't she move on? Brock threw his phone onto the nightstand in frustration, then rolled over the other way, closing his eyes and wishing for sleep.
Chapter 5.
Done and done, Erica said with triumph in her voice. She set the files down on the desk and pushed them over to Brock, who looked up at her with the familiar mischievous look he so often gave. She felt her cheeks flush and instantly wished that they would not, knowing that he could tell every time they did. She didn't like feeling vulnerable around Brock. There was something about him that was so intimidating. She felt that he could see right through her most of the time. "And that's why you're my favorite assistant," he said as he scooped up the papers and patted them into a neat pile. "I'm your only assistant," Erica pointed out wryly, finally at the point where she could be around the ridiculously good-looking guy and at least hold a conversation, even if half the time it still ended in her blushing and stammering. "If I had 10, you'd still be my favorite," Brock replied, winking, and that sent Erica into full meltdown, so she made her way back to the main office. Angie turned away as Erica walked out. The woman had apparently taken a dislike to her that just wouldn't quit. Thankfully, Erica was past the training stage, so they didn't have extended interactions any longer. "Having fun?" Angie asked, not turning around. "What? I heard you giggling in there like a schoolgirl. I just wondered if you and your employer are having fun." Angie's tone was flat and her voice was dry, but for some reason her words made Erica's blood run cold. Though she sensed that there were always going to be problems between them, she didn't know why Angie was deciding to pick a fight with her right now. "I wouldn't call it giggling like a schoolgirl, but yes, I do enjoy working here, thanks for asking," she said. Erica had learned that the best way to deal with Angie was to answer her attitude and move on with her own day, trying to ignore her the best she could. "I just hope you understand that you have to be professional at work. I would hate for you to get hurt," Angie said with the same dry tone as before. "What are you suggesting?" Erica's eyes narrowed. "All I'm saying is that there is work etiquette and there is flirtation, and you, my friend, are walking pretty close to the line," Angie said. Erica opened her mouth to protest, then snapped it shut. What was the point? It was probably blatantly obvious that she was attracted to Brock. No denying that. But she hadn't done anything wrong, so Angie could just think whatever she. "Look, you're young," Angie interrupted her whirling thoughts. "I'll give you that. So I'm just telling you this because I don't want to see you get hurt. I've seen the way Brock has been with other girls, and I know that you are excited, and this is all so fresh and new, but I'm warning you, it's not going to last." She turned to answer the phone. In spite of her resolution to keep quiet, Erica opened her mouth to retort, and then her own phone beeped. She glanced at the screen and smiled. "Is that Brock?" Angie asked, and Erica gave her a look. "Mind your own business," she replied. She lifted the phone to her ear and retreated to a quiet part of the office where she could hear the person on the other end of the line. "Yes, this is Erica." "Yes." "What? Really?" "No, definitely. I'm just really surprised." "No, this isn't my first place, but I didn't know that they would take someone without more renting experience. I'll be down there as soon as I get off work today." "Yes, thank you." Erica hung up the phone and looked over her shoulder. Angie was watching her, but she didn't say anything. Erica quickly looked back to her phone and slipped it into her purse. She had just heard that she had gotten the apartment she had applied for a few weeks prior. It was ridiculously nice and not cheap, but she could afford it on her salary. The one problem was whether they'd believe that she could make her rent, given that her bank account was still more empty than it was full. Apparently, they'd checked her references and decided she was a safe bet for a tenant. She had to get down there to sign some paperwork, and they were going to close shortly after she got off work, so she would have to ask Brock if she could leave early. "I'm surprised. I would have thought when they pulled my credit report that they would have said no way, but I guess they must have liked what they saw. Erica said. Congratulations, Brock said with a warm smile. I'm sure they saw what I did when you interviewed. Angie's warning or not, Erica laughed and blushed and felt utterly teenage girlish. Well, I'll see you in the morning. Thank you, she said. On her way down the elevator, Erica put her phone to her ear. She knew she ought to call the bank and see how much money she should transfer before she made it down to the bank, not wanting to overdraw any of her accounts. She flipped through the menu, listening to all the prompts she was being given by the computer on the other end. She listened to the menu, but then shook her head and looked down at her phone. Something had to be wrong. Pressing the button, she listened to the entire list again. There had to be something wrong with her account. It said that she didn't have any outstanding balances of any kind. But just the day before, she had been thousands of dollars in debt. Confused, Erica looked at her watch. She was going to have to hurry, but she would have time to stop by the bank before she went down to the rental agency. She would have to get this straightened out. 15 minutes later, her jaw was on its way to the pavement. My balance is what? I told you there were going to be plenty of perks for working for a billionaire. Megan said with a laugh, taking a pair of shoes from the store clerk and starting to try them. Erica had just told her what had happened earlier that day, and how she had had all her debt paid off. There was no question that it had been Brock. Nobody else she knew had that kind of money. Part of Erica was thrilled, but most of her was freaked out. She couldn't stop thinking about what Angie had said, and she worried that the woman was right. Perhaps there was more going on than what she thought, and perhaps it wasn't as innocent as she thought it was. Come on, you're not actually involved with the guy, are you? I mean, it's not like you're getting perks for whatever it is you two have going on. Maybe he just wants to help you out, and don't tell me you don't deserve it. Erica laughed. I don't know about that. Look at these. She held up another pair of shoes, and Megan immediately took them from her. Shoe shopping had seemed like at least a small way to celebrate being suddenly debt-free. Come on, you've been through a lot, what with your dad and everything, Megan replied. Erica winced. It was true. She had lost her mother when she was very young, and her father had a heart condition and often required surgery. Though she didn't like to think about it, she often worried that he was going to have some kind of heart failure and would need a transplant. I wouldn't worry about it if I was you. That's my point. Megan's voice broke through her thoughts, and Erica looked back over at her. I know how you think, Erica. It's weird. I agree. Who does that, especially for a brand new employee? Megan went on. But then again, who looks a gift horse like that in the mouth? Gosh. I'd love a boss like. She knew that her friend was right. She shouldn't worry about it. But then she didn't want Brock to think that he owned her. She worked for him. She was his secretary. Nothing more. It was strange that he would do so much for someone who was nothing more than his assistant, and she didn't feel comfortable with what he had done. I don't know. I just don't want this to turn into a scandal, you know, she asked. Look, if you're that worried about it, why don't you tell him so? Megan asked. Erica sighed. She knew her friend was right, and no matter how much she didn't want there to be tension or trouble between her and her employer, she was going to have to talk to him about this. There was just no other way. But in the meantime, Megan? Her best friend gave her a smirk. Yeah. You're debt-free. Rub it in. School debt-free. Erica threw her arms around Megan and hugged her hard. Now I can finally pay for a new couch for you. Megan laughed and hugged her back. I wouldn't mind that. Your body pretty much permanently imprinted the cushions. But for now I'll settle for lunch and a spa day.
Chapter 6.
I don't think it's such a bad idea. She's stunning, Jack said with a chuckle, finishing off his whiskey. Brock stared into his own glass. You should know, I'd have to fire you. And I'd seriously consider knocking you out, he replied flatly. Jack raised a brow. Well, that's different. There is something different about her, Brock agreed. I mean, sure, I've noticed how gorgeous she is. Maybe if I stopped thinking about her so much I could finally get some sleep, but it's not just that. I don't want to hurt her. She doesn't seem like someone who's had it easy. He finished off his drink, and Jack gave him a long look. Since when do you of all people care about that, he asked, and Brock shrugged. The fact of the matter was that he himself didn't know when he'd started feeling that way. He had liked Erica from the moment she walked through the doors of his company, but he didn't want to hurt her. And that had honestly never much mattered to him before. There's just something different about this one. She's so young. I don't want her to hate me after, he said with a light laugh. Jack gave him another strange look, showing that he didn't know what had come over his friend. This was strange behavior for Brock, and he knew it. But he still felt how he felt, and he wasn't going to change his mind just because he was obsessing over this girl. If you're into her, just go for it. Don't overthink it, Jack said with a laugh as he knocked back his second shot. If there was something about Jack, he could really hold his liquor, and he wasn't afraid to do it. Brock used to try to keep up with him, but not anymore. He just let his friend drink as much as he cared to, and picked up the tab when they were done. At the very least, Jack was good company to talk to about things like this. I'll figure it out, Brock said, wondering exactly how he planned on doing that, given that he'd been trying for weeks utterly unsuccessfully. He finished the rest of his drink, then held up his hand. Check, please. I just don't feel comfortable with you paying that much money for me. I mean, you're already paying more than I would be making at any other place in town, and I can pay my own bills. Erica shifted back and forth in her seat, clearly nervous. Brock, on the other hand, was sitting in his chair and smiling. He hadn't been sure how she was going to react when she learned that he had paid off her debt, and he wasn't surprised that she had reacted in the way that she did. There were some women who liked to have everything paid for them, then there were those who were upset when it happened. With the way she behaved in the office, he wasn't at all surprised that she would rather take care of things on her own. I understand that, and I hope you aren't offended. I didn't mean any offense by it, really. I just wanted to do something nice for you, and that was the best thing I could think of. He smiled at her as he spoke, hoping that he could calm her down with his nonchalant attitude. She smiled, wiping her hands nervously on her skirt as she did. I don't want you to think that I'm not grateful, because I really am. I just want you to know that I can take care of my own life. I don't need special favors. It wasn't special treatment, let me assure you. This was something that I do for all of my employees. Whenever anyone new starts here, I make sure that they are taken care of, and what better way to do that than to take care of their debt, he lied. He watched her keenly as he did, hoping that she would believe him, and to his relief she appeared to. Really? I mean, I know that you have a lot of money, but I didn't know that you were so generous with everyone. I help those that I care about, and if you are in my circle, then I care about you. Simple. Brock smiled as he spoke, and she looked at him with raised eyebrows. All right, I'll let you do this for me once, but I want you to know that it's not something that's going to happen again. She crossed her arms and looked at him, and he gave her a strange look in return. At last he smiled. Deal, Brock agreed. I'm sorry I went behind your back. I thought it'd be a nice surprise, but I should have spoken with you first. Let me make it up to you, why don't you come out with us tonight? He listed a few of her colleagues, who were all going out with him that night. He knew if he didn't keep talking, she might lose her nerve and decline, so he did what he could to sweeten the deal. It's going to be a rather quiet night for us. We're just going to grab a quick bite and some drinks after. Nothing too crazy. He winked at her, and he could see that she was clearly torn. What do you have to lose? Brock urged. When's the last time you went out and just cut loose with your friends? I mean, if you want to be friends with these people, you're going to have to get out and hang out with them from time to time. He winked at her once more, causing her to blush. He wished he could get a glimpse into what she was really thinking, but her face was as hard to read as anything he could imagine. He was just about to give up and tell her that there was no pressure for her to go with him, when he saw something change in her face. It was as though she had suddenly won a battle she had been fighting with herself, and she had made up her mind to do something that was against her better judgment. "Well, what the hell?" "All right," she said after a moment of deliberation. "Excellent. Then I want you to take this and get yourself something nice to wear." Brock reached into his wallet and pulled out his credit card, handing it to her as her eyes widened. Erica looked at the card, then she gave him a look and shook her head. "What did we just talk about? I'm not going to be taking any more money from you. I get my paycheck, and that is the end of that. You said that gifts were fine, and that's what this is. We are going out tonight, and it's my treat." Erica took the card before shaking her head and placing it back on the table in front of Brock. "No. I can't." Brock opened his mouth to protest, but she was already out of her seat. "I can't, Brock. It's not professional. Besides, you pay me plenty. I'll buy a nice dress." With a shy smile in his direction, she walked out of the room and left Brock reeling, wondering who this woman was who couldn't be bought. Who wouldn't be bought? Damn. He really, really liked her.
Chapter 7.
"Don't you think that it's a little strange he just gave me the card and told me to go get a dress?" Erica asked. She had stopped by her father's coffee shop on her way downtown to ask his opinion on what had been happening, but he merely shook his head. "It's strange," her father agreed, wiping down the counter. "It's good that you didn't take it. He could get ideas. That whole debt thing. I mean, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but in my experience, employers just don't do that." He tossed the dish rag aside and reached for a broom to scour the empty coffee shop, the way he did whenever it was empty. She'd inherited her work ethic from him, in a big way. She flushed, having been thinking the same thing, and took the broom from him. "Right? I really shouldn't have accepted that, but I didn't know what to do. How do you tell someone that you don't want to be debt-free?" "What's done is done," her dad went on. "Just watch yourself. He's not getting handsy or anything, is he?" Erica turned beet red, mostly because she'd been fantasizing for weeks about him doing exactly that. "No," she exclaimed, doing a brisk back and forth with the broom across the cafe's seating area, before starting on the space behind the counter. "He's always been completely professional." "Good. As long as that continues, you're okay," her dad replied, stepping around the broom and walking over to buff the tables to a nice shine. "He invited me out tonight," Erica mumbled, not looking at her father. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw him stop. "But we're going out with a group of people. It's not like it's a date or anything," she added quickly. Her father gave her another look. "Just remember, if you ever feel uncomfortable with the situation, or like you don't want to do something, then don't do it." He leaned over the first table and then froze, groaning quietly. "Dad." Erica dropped the broom and rushed over, grabbing his shoulders. He turned stark white. "I'm fine." He straightened and pulled away. "I pulled a back muscle lifting something the other day. Just a spasm." She wasn't even remotely convinced, but nagging her father never had any kind of positive effect. "Really, I'm fine," he went on. "I want you to get out of here. You need to go find a dress." He smiled at her, but she shook her head. "I can't leave you when you're not feeling well. I can help you close up today. You really do need at least a second person in here, Dad." "Don't you worry about me," he said firmly. "I told you, everything is just fine here with me. Now go on, if you are going to find a dress in time for tonight, you're going to have to get started now. I know how you are, if you don't go now, you're going to be there until midnight before you even know what you're going to want," he teased. Erica frowned. "All right," she said slowly. "But if you need anything at all, anything, Dad, you let me know." "I always do," he reminded her, and it was true that he was good at reaching out if he needed an extra hand with something. Still reluctant, Erica helped him finish the tables and washed a few dishes before giving him a big hug and heading out. "I love you," she called over her shoulder and smiled at his usual response. "I love you more, sugar sweet." She didn't really know what to expect for their outing. As Erica moved from store to store until she found the perfect emerald green dress, one that hugged her in all the right places but was modest enough that she'd be comfortable in it in any setting. It wouldn't hike up too high if she was perched on a bar stool, for instance. She built up expectations and then batted them aside. In between, she talked things over with Megan on the phone. Down with a bad flu, her friend couldn't join her, but she offered plenty of advice anyway, ranging from earrings and shoes, hair and makeup, to the non-date itself. "You know as well as I do that this is a date," Megan said yet again later on, as Erica was at home finishing up the last curls in her hair, then reaching for a necklace that matched the soft green fabric nicely. Yeah, Erica muttered distractedly, slipping into her new pair of heels and eyeing herself in the mirror. By now, Megan had argued her around to accepting that this was actually more than Brock had made it appear. "The man is into you," Megan reminded her unnecessarily just before hanging up. "You have to make the decision whether to pursue that or not." It might have taken weeks for Erica to stop deluding herself, but the fact was that she and Brock did have a consistent sizzling undercurrent between them. What was the point in continuing to deny it? And if she accepted that, the question then became, what happened next? As the doorbell to her apartment rang, her mouth went dry and her anticipation rocketed. At the back of her mind, she made the decision right there and then. If he came onto her, she was going to go with it. If he didn't, maybe that was better career-wise. But if he did, she was going to take the opportunity, for better or worse. "Coming," she called, and hurried to open the door to the most handsome man she'd ever known.
Chapter 8.
She looked like a goddess. Plain and simple. Brock almost swallowed his tongue as he escorted Erica downstairs, barely able to peel his eyes away from the dress. She might not have used his money to buy it, and it wasn't anywhere near the skimpy affair he usually liked on a woman, but it was exactly right. It left plenty to the imagination but offered more than enough to catch his eye, her silhouette framed gracefully by the fabric, the hint of elegance in the way she carried herself. The gentle curve of her leg, modest yet captivating, stirred something deep inside him, sparking a quiet longing he could hardly put into words. "I can feel your eyes," Erica said, turning to look at him from down the hallway, and the heat in her gaze nearly froze Brock to the spot. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever laid eyes on," he said bluntly, not about to sugarcoat it. And when she blushed, she was even prettier. "I don't want to go out with everyone else, Erica. Point blank, I want to spend tonight with you." He let her do her own reading into that innuendo. "I want that too." He wasn't finished reeling from the shock of those words when she walked over and smiled up into his eyes. "This game we're playing? I don't know how it ends, but I'm enjoying it." Brock swallowed hard, his usual total control over every facet of his life vanishing in the blink of a long, sultry eyelash. He loved how candid she was. He loved that small, slightly shy smile, the flash of her beautiful eyes, the slight huskiness to her voice. He loved her whole personality and way of being, frankly. And it scared the crap out of him how much he felt himself falling damn hard toward loving her. Trying hard to recover his billionaire sang-froid, Brock looped an arm around her waist, pulled Erica tight into his muscled chest, and gave her the full measure of his hungry gaze. "Do I kiss you now, or at the end of the date? Because it's happening today, sweetheart. That's a promise." She bit her lip, and he instantly wanting to take over biting it, running his own teeth over the soft, supple skin. "If we start now, there won't be any date. And I want a date, Brock. I want to see you outside of the office before, she concluded after an endearing pause that reminded him that she wasn't as confident as she always seemed to project. Somehow, he managed to draw back without ravaging those sweet lips. "Okay," Brock said, swallowing a groan. Then you'll get your date, honey. And possibly a whole lot more, if we both agree we'd like it. Tentatively, she slipped her fingers into his, and though he'd never been a hand-holding guy, that seemed to imply some kind of commitment, and he was absolutely phobic in that sense. He liked how her small hand settled in his. He liked walking her out to his Lexus, holding the door for her, and waiting for her to slide into the seat. He liked leaning down to brush his lips over her cheek, because that might just hold him the rest of the night. He liked joining her in the car, climbing into the driver's seat, and finding her waiting there with her soft, by now familiar smile. "Pizza?" Erica asked. "I've been craving it all week. I know billionaires probably prefer more upscale." "Papa John's is on speed dial," he informed her with a grin as he pulled onto the road. "I know a place." "I've just never seen it done before," Erica insisted, walking alongside Brock with a slice of pizza in her free hand, just like he had one in his from his favorite food truck. He drew her a little closer to his side and took a bite of his soy sauce-dipped pizza. "So it's not traditional," he said with his mouth full. "Who cares? Best stuff ever. You should try it." She gave him a skeptical glance and took a bite of her own slice as they meandered through a park, the trees just starting to cast shadows. It had been like this for the last 45 minutes, from the drive to the food truck to the park. Sizzling with chemistry, even as they talked about everything. Brock had learned more about Erica's background in those 45 minutes than he had in all the time she'd been working with him. And his admiration had only grown as he found out how she'd worked her way through college, paying both her own bills and her father's medical bills somehow simultaneously. He'd even shared some of his own story, which he didn't talk much about, growing up with two less than doting parents, leaving home young and clawing his way up to his current position in the financial world. "Tell me one more time," Erica urged, and he laughed. In the midst of telling their life stories, she'd also found time to press him about how exactly Bitcoin worked. Each transaction is associated with a hash. In a block, each transaction hash is also hashed, sometimes more than once, and the final product is the Merkle root. It's the root of the hash of all hashes. She groaned. "Leaves? Nodes? Roots?" Whoever created the system had a tree fetish. Brock grinned, fully aware that as smart as Erica was, she'd understand the complexities of cryptocurrency before long. At least as long as she stuck with him. The thought that she might not left a foul taste in his mouth, and he stepped in front of her, stopping her in mid-step. Confused, Erica looked up, and he spotted a hint of pizza sauce and cheese on her soft, full lips. "You make me crazy," Brock said simply and leaned down to kiss those small traces of her dinner away. He'd meant it as a simple tease, but the moment their lips brushed, the game ended. He tossed the remains of his pizza slice into a nearby trash can and stepped toward Erica, slipping his arms gently around her waist. She looked up at him, surprised by the sudden nearness, but didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into the kiss he pressed to her lips, tender at first, then deepening as something unspoken passed between them. Her soft sigh stirred something inside him, and his hand rose instinctively to cradle the back of her head, fingers brushing through her hair with care. "Soy sauce," she whispered with a faint smile, breathless and amused. "Not so bad." He chuckled, his forehead resting against hers. "You always find a way to surprise me." Brock cupped her cheek and guided her into another kiss, longer this time, more certain. The tension between them, built over countless near moments and silent glances, finally found release in the way they held each other close. When his hand drifted from her waist to her back, pulling her gently forward, Erica gasped, a soft, startled sound that spoke more of recognition than alarm. She tilted her head, allowing him to brush a slow, reverent kiss along her jaw and down her neck. Time seemed to dissolve around them. Her fingers traced the lines of his shoulders and chest, searching for connection rather than urgency. His arms wrapped tighter, as though he could shield her from the rest of the world. After a long moment, she murmured against his ear, "Take me home, Brock." He didn't need her to say more. They walked together, arms wrapped around each other, stopping every few steps to steal another kiss, slow, smiling, full of promise. At the door to the Lexus, he paused and looked at her in the soft glow of the streetlight. "So beautiful," he said softly, brushing a thumb across her cheek and down to the curve of her lip. It seemed that the pause gave Erica a moment to worry, because she finally asked the question Brock sensed she'd been wondering about for a while. What happens after? I don't know, he said honestly. I'm not into commitment, Erica. I can give you tonight. And I can promise this won't affect the workplace at all. You have my word. It was a lie they both knew, but she seemed to accept it and nodded, leaning in for one more hungry kiss before Brock got into the car and pushed every speed limit back to her place.
Chapter 9.
Erica could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she unlocked the door to the apartment and allowed Brock in. He walked inside, and she took a second to appreciate the firm, muscular planes of his back before walking in and closing the door. Nice place, he said huskily, gesturing around. Those are yours, I'm guessing? As he spoke, he walked over to an abstract painting of the Elle she'd told him tonight about her painting, and he'd listened carefully, it turned out, as he commented, "This is the one you said you painted after you and Joseph called it quits." It was. She'd always painted as a hobby, going as far as having a few very small shows, but the breakup with her year-long boyfriend had triggered a painting spree, where Erica had repainted many of the places that had somehow been theirs, finding her way back to a mentality where the places were generic and not quite so personal anymore. Yeah. Because that was the first place he ever kissed me, on the train, she explained, unaccountably nervous as Brock assessed her work. It's really good, he said quietly and turned to look at her. The admiration she saw in his gaze, alongside the hunger, made Erica want him even more. I'd like to kiss you on a train. Or anywhere else, for that matter. But kissing you right here is a good start. He crooked his finger and Erica took a slow breath and walked over, turning her back toward him as she did. I was wondering if you might give me a hand with getting the back of this dress unzipped, she murmured, casting a glance over her shoulder. The last thing I want to do is tear it. Brock's jaw dropped slightly. Then his eyes flashed and she saw him commit fully to the game. And that was exactly what this was, she decided, as he moved over to her, turning her around with light fingertips on her back that nevertheless made her skin almost burst into flames. They were playing a game, and she had no idea what the rules were. And damn it, for once she could not have cared less. She turned around, and he unzipped the back of the garment, exposing her skin until she was covered in goosebumps. Then he leaned forward and buried his face in the back of her neck. He kissed her softly, trailing gentle kisses up and down her neck, his hand brushing over her shoulder and settling at her waist. His touch was warm, careful, and filled with affection. Just like that, Erica murmured, her voice gentle, her head resting lightly against his shoulder. Instead of rushing, he turned her slowly to face him and kissed her with quiet tenderness. As he helped ease the straps of her top down her arms, his eyes held a look of wonder, as if she were something truly special. You're beautiful, he murmured, brushing kisses along her collarbone and shoulders, each one more tender than the last. As he did, she helped him remove his shirt, needing to feel his warmth against her. Her fingers explored the lines of his chest as he held her close. Without warning, Brock scooped her up into his arms, making her laugh in surprise. He carried her to the couch and settled down with her, drawing her into another kiss, slower this time, as his hands traced over her back and sides in a gentle, reassuring rhythm. Their closeness deepened as they lost themselves in each other, quiet words, shared smiles, hands exploring with tenderness. Erica felt safe and cherished in his arms, her heart pounding not just from attraction, but from the emotion behind every touch and every glance. He held her as if he didn't want to let go, running his hands lightly along her back as they lay together. She rested her head on his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her cheek. I'm not letting you go tonight, he whispered into her hair. I just want to stay like this with you for as long as I can. Erica smiled against him, warmed by the way he made her feel, seen, wanted, and loved. She could feel how close they were growing, the quiet intensity between them impossible to ignore. I get a turn first, Erica whispered with a playful smile, brushing a soft kiss against his lips. Then she took his hand and led him toward the bedroom. They kissed again, slower this time, more meaningful. Their laughter mixed with the sound of their footsteps as they moved together, hand in hand. Inside, Brock sat on the edge of the bed. Erica knelt down in front of him, gently taking his hands in hers. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to go still for a moment. There was no rush, no pressure, just the deep unspoken understanding that something real was unfolding between them. She stood and leaned forward, wrapping her arms around his shoulders, pressing her forehead to his. "I want to be close to you," she whispered. Brock rose to his feet and drew her into his arms. "Then let me hold you." He guided her gently to the bed, and they lay beside each other, tangled in warmth and quiet connection. There were no words needed. Every look, every brush of a hand spoke volumes. He traced her cheek with his thumb. "You mean more to me than I expected," he said softly. "I just don't want to mess this up." "You're not," she whispered. "You're here. That's enough." They stayed like that, wrapped in the comfort of each other, hearts beating in sync. No rush. No demands. Just trust and closeness. Eventually, Brock sat up and sighed. "I've got an early morning," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I should probably head out and let you rest." Erica nodded, offering a soft smile even though a small part of her didn't want him to go. "Okay. I'll see you tomorrow?" "Definitely." He leaned down, kissed her forehead, and quietly slipped out the door. Left alone, Erica stared at the ceiling. She hadn't meant to fall for him, but here she was, heart already tied to something deeper than she'd expected. Megan's voice came back to her, "Just don't get too close." Too late.
Chapter 10.
Brock didn't know what had happened to him, but he couldn't get Erica off his mind. The night after they'd been together, he'd finally gone home and slept, really slept. And when he woke, he felt like a weight had lifted. He still couldn't believe it had happened. After all the longing, all the nights spent thinking about her, he had finally shared something real with the woman he'd wanted for so long. And it felt right. Part of him was worried that she was going to regret what she had done when she woke. He grabbed his phone, worried that there was already a message on it saying that she wasn't happy about the night before, or that she wanted to speak with him. But his phone only held messages that were about work, and he dismissed them all. He got up and showered, thinking about everything they had done the night before. It didn't matter what he did, Erica was on the front of his mind, consuming every single spare thought that he had, and he was glad. For the first time ever, he regretted leaving a woman's bed and apartment. But he couldn't have stayed, obviously. This wasn't a relationship. He wasn't sure if it was a one-night stand, or one that would turn into several, but it still was no girlfriend-boyfriend thing. He didn't play that game, and he'd been clear about his lack of interest in commitment. Once he got out of the shower, he walked back over to the bed. At the back of his mind, he knew that it would be the right thing to do to send her a text. It had been a great evening, even beyond the intimacy. A nice guy sent something the night after. But when he pulled up his phone, his mind went blank. Finally he just sent, "Thinking of you." After he sent it, he second-guessed himself, which Brock rarely did, and continued to do so as he got dressed and started the drive to work. There were too many ways the message could be misread. It sounded deeper, and more intimate than he'd intended. But it also seemed shallow, not even mentioning the particulars of the night. All the way to work, Brock thought about her, and even wondered what her eyes would be like when they woke and were hazy with sleep. Just wondering that scared the crap out of him, because one thing Brock didn't do was morning after scenes. Never had. Never intended to. Way too intimate. Commitment scared him. He'd seen how his parents had torn each other to pieces, and he wanted no part of that pie. So how to let Erica know that she was special, and last night had also been, without letting on how much she'd rocked him completely, therefore giving her ideas and making himself vulnerable. There had to be a way. Brock excelled at blazing paths where there were none to be found. It was a long, awkward morning, with Erica obviously avoiding him. It bothered Brock more than he cared to admit that she was clearly hurt, and that he missed their easy interactions. Finally, Brock couldn't put it off any longer and sent her a text, even though she was just one room away. Got a second? A moment later, there was a knock on the door and he drew a slow breath before calling, "Come on in." She walked in, her eyes looking every which way, far from the confident person he'd come to know. Even as he took in her pallor and nervousness, he couldn't help but notice how good she looked. It seemed that she just didn't have a bad day in her. She was beautiful morning, noon, and night. "Can I help you with something?" she finally said, hovering in front of his desk until he waved her into a chair. "Run an errand? Reschedule a..." "It's not work-related," Brock cut in, opting for blunt since that was his comfort zone. "Are you okay, Erica?" She gave him a look. "Not exactly. You know why. But I knew it would affect work, so it's on me." He winced. "No, it's just as much on me." Then he didn't know what else to say. "Sorry?" But he wasn't. Not at all. And he told her what to expect, right? There was an awkward pause between them, and Brock felt his thoughts racing. He didn't know what had come over him. With the rest of the world, he was the suave and smooth businessman, able to handle and take care of anything. It was often said that no one and nothing could rattle him, and it was a rumor that he had often lived up to with pride. But with this girl seated on the chair on the opposite side of his desk, he couldn't help but feel nervous. For the first time in his life, he wasn't nervous about what she was going to say when she left. He was worried that he was going to say something that would make her leave. She hadn't said anything about the text that he had sent her that morning, and that fact in itself bothered him. "If that's all, then I'll get back to work." Erica got to her feet abruptly. "I'll deal with it, Brock. I'm a grown woman. I made a choice last night. I don't regret it, even if this is the result." Somehow, hearing that she didn't regret it eased some of Brock's own tension. He got to his feet and moved in front of Erica to cut her off from the door. She gave him a warning look. "I have work to do, Brock." "Your work?" The hurt in her eyes pierced through him, breaking down what little defenses he had left. Without thinking, he reached out and pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as he kissed her with raw emotion. For a moment Erica hesitated, but then she softened in his embrace, returning the kiss with a desperate need that matched his own. "I'm sorry," he murmured against her lips, brushing her hair back gently. "I've been a mess." "Don't talk," she whispered, resting her forehead against his chest. "Just stay here. Just be with me, before I remember all the reasons I shouldn't." He managed to break away long enough to walk over and quietly lock the door. When he turned back, she was standing near his desk, her eyes full of longing, her blouse halfway unbuttoned. His heart stuttered at the sight of her, not just because of her beauty, but because she was letting him in. He crossed the room in 2 strides and cupped her face, kissing her again, slowly, reverently. Then he drew her into his arms, holding her close, as if by touch alone he could express everything he'd never dared say out loud. "You're incredible," he whispered, kissing the top of her head, then her cheek, then the curve of her shoulder. Erica wrapped her arms around his neck. "I've thought about this," she said softly, her breath catching. "So have I," he admitted, brushing a gentle hand along her back, memorizing every detail, every moment. They moved together with quiet urgency, not rushed but undeniably drawn to each other. Brock took his time, letting each kiss speak what words could not, grounding them both in something deeper than desire. He guided her gently down onto the couch, wrapping her in his arms, his touch never demanding, just present, attentive, full of care. When she finally rested her head against his chest, both of them breathless and still, he held her like she was something rare. Something he hadn't known he'd been searching for until now. "Beautiful," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't even know." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "I might," she said softly, brushing her fingers against his cheek. They stayed like that, wrapped in the silence that only came from trust, from vulnerability. Brock didn't want to move. Didn't want to let go. But eventually, he sighed. "I should go. I don't want to, but..." Erica nodded, fingers lingering on his. "Me neither." He bent to kiss her once more, slow, deep, and full of everything he couldn't say yet. Then he stepped back, feeling the weight of what had just passed between them settle into something real. Damn meetings, Erica laughed breathlessly, beginning to collect her clothes. Brock didn't make it easy on her, he admitted to himself later, interrupting her at every turn with another kiss, pressing his lips to each sweet tender spot before it vanished beneath the unwanted fabric, until her blouse was finally fully buttoned, and she somehow managed to pat her hair back into place. "One sec," Brock said before she stepped out of the office. He picked up the phone. "Hey Ange, do me a favor? There's a package that was supposed to be delivered today, and I haven't seen it. Erica's out on some kind of errand. Can you check? Thanks." A moment later, he hung up and smiled at Erica. "Coast is clear." As she smiled back and slipped out of the office, Brock stood there frozen, staring after her, the realization sinking in more than ever. He was crazy about her. Damn it all.
Chapter 11.
I know. Erica fended off Megan's scolding, hunching over the salad she'd been trying to eat ever since they got to their usual favorite lunch spot. She'd made the mistake of telling Megan everything and was now paying dearly for it. "You realize this is exactly what he wanted," Megan went on. "Paying off your debts was just an opener. He probably hired you because he liked how you look." "Stop," Erica cut in, finally having had enough, and Megan must have heard the edge in her tone because she finally shut up. "I get it. I fell for my boss, yes, I fell for him. It wasn't just me climbing into bed with nobody," she said in response to her best friend's suddenly wide eyes. "I fell for him, and that was my first mistake. My second was taking the money, and my third was sleeping with him. But he hired me because of my talent, Megan. You said from the very beginning that it would be about my looks, and that was insulting then. It's insulting now." Throwing down a few bills, Erica stood up, giving up on lunch. "Wait," Megan said hastily, getting up too and reaching out a hand. "Erica, I didn't mean it that way. I just don't want you to get hurt." Erica stood stiffly, hating the tears in her eyes. "It's not like I think it'll work between us. How could it? He's a billionaire, and I'm some college student off the street who happened to get lucky enough to be hired by him. He's a playboy. He's been completely upfront about that. He doesn't want to commit. I get it. I'm fully aware of the reality. But that doesn't make a bit of difference in how I feel." She grabbed a napkin, jabbed at her eyes with it, and walked away. As she did, with Megan hurrying alongside her desperately, Erica's phone started buzzing, and she looked down at it. "I don't know who this is," she muttered, stepping outside of the cafe and answering. "Hello? Yes, is this Miss Sampson?" She didn't recognize the voice on the other end of the line. "Yes?" Erica said uncertainly, shrugging her shoulders at Megan's quizzical look. "This is Officer Johnson. Ma'am, your father has just been transported to the hospital." Erica's heart froze, and she momentarily blanked out everything else the officer was saying, until she finally registered the words heart attack, and they rattled around in her brain until they forced words from her lips. "Oh my gosh. Is he going to be okay?" she cried into the phone, leaning into Megan's immediately supportive arm. "Where did you say he is? Is he going to be okay?" "Ma'am, all I can tell you is that he is at the hospital right now." The officer rattled off a name and address and then hung up, shaking violently. "I'll drive," Megan said firmly, having gathered the gist of the conversation from Erica's reaction. As she guided Erica along the street, the world seemed hazy and out of focus. She couldn't bring herself to think of something bad happening to her father. She'd barely known her mother. Her father had raised her by himself and was the best man she knew. "He has to be okay," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as Megan ushered her into her car and then sped toward the hospital. The next 48 hours were a living nightmare. From the moment they arrived in the hospital until Monday afternoon, When yet another heart specialist arrived to speak with her, all Erica could do was sit helplessly by her father's bedside, where he was surrounded by so much machinery that it felt like a factory. There were so many tubes in his work-worn hands that she couldn't even hold one, so she settled for staying awake beside him, touching his shoulder frequently, whispering prayers and pleas. The specialist rambled on about her father's heart condition, the reason for the induced coma, all the things Erica had been hearing for days, and then threw one more iron in the fire. He'll require further surgery. His heart is so badly scarred from previous trauma that we weren't able to fully perform the necessary procedures the first time. Erica had barely recovered from hearing that when the surgeon continued, "We don't think he'll need to be put on a transplant list, but he'll require intensive care for quite some time to get him back to health. And after that, he'll need to see." Erica heard the long list of specialists and therapists and medications, even as she knew they didn't have the money to pay for it. Her father's pre-existing conditions had been the death sentence on any number of insurance plans they'd applied for over the years. She managed to somehow thank the doctor and saw him to the door, then was sinking back into her chair when a familiar voice made her head shoot up. "How is he?" "Brock?" she exclaimed in surprise, jumping back up to her feet and realizing that in the chaos, she'd completely forgotten to call work. She'd simply skipped going in. "Oh my gosh, I'm so..." Then he was beside her, drawing her into his arms, holding her tight. "Shush." "How is he?" he repeated, and Erica broke down and cried for the 100th time, leaning into Brock's big broad chest as he kissed her hair and whispered soft, reassuring words. Finally she drew back and managed to sniff. "How did you know?" "Your best friend called," he replied, snagging a tissue from a nearby box and gently wiping her face. "You should have called." "I would have been here immediately, Erica. I wasn't thinking about anything except him." She looked at her still, silent father, and tears overflowed her eyes again. "He can't die. He just can't. It sounds so selfish, but I'll be all alone." Her voice cracked. Brock slid an arm around her waist. "You're not alone, sweetheart. I know I told you I'm not into commitment, and I'm not. But that doesn't mean I won't be here for you." His words felt bizarrely discordant with his sudden appearance, and she went from feeling reassured and supported to alone all over again. It was like he just had to drive home that one point. "I don't even know what that means." Erica drew away and folded her arms around herself, desperately cold in this lonely, sterile room. "What exactly are we if we're not committed?" He grimaced, and she kicked herself around the block, already knowing the next words out of his mouth. "I told you before, everything. I just don't do that kind of stuff. I'm your friend, Erica. Your boss. Your friend. Your romantic partner sometimes." She clenched her jaw so tightly it hurt. "Of course. You did tell me. I'm the one who deluded myself into thinking I could possibly be more." She needed to walk. She'd been cooped up into this room for too long. Needing air, she started for the door and headed down the hallway, not knowing where she was going, but unable to stop moving. Brock kept pace with her easily. "Erica. I know it sounds terrible, but it's honestly not you. I swear the problem is all..." "Oh, I know where the problem is," she interrupted, taking the stairs 2 at a time. "And I'm no innocent. You were up front, and I should have seen it coming. I let myself be bought almost from day one. My salary. My debts." "Whoa," Brock called out as she nearly let the door to the lobby slam shut behind her. He stayed close, not letting her storm away without being heard. "Yes, you looked absolutely stunning when I hired you, but that's not why I brought you on. Not because of your looks or anything like that." He let out a sharp breath. "Darn it, Erica, I hired you because you're brilliant. Now will you just stop for 1 second? She had stopped, finally, and was staring at a magazine in the hospital's gift shop. Reaching out, Erica picked it up and stared at the cover. Brock glanced at it and groaned. "Erica?" It was a standard tabloid, supermarket style, filled with celebrities and diet tricks. And on the cover was her boss, her romantic partner, her friend, passionately making out with a certain celeb du jour. That wasn't recent, Brock began, and Erica waved him away, putting the magazine back down and resuming her endless walk. You don't have to apologize. Like you said, we're nothing. And even if we were something, which we'll never be, I know, that doesn't matter right now. What does is that my father may be dying. That is all that matters to me, Brock. You are no longer important. Maybe you've never heard those words before, so hear them clearly from me. She pivoted and faced him dead on, not even angry as she looked into his handsome, shocked face. All she felt was empty. Hollowed out. You are no longer important. I would like to keep my job because I have to once again pay my bills along with my father's, but that is the only reason I don't outright quit. Please don't fire me. If I have to beg, I will. For him. Not for me. He blanched, but she didn't have enough energy left in her to regret her words. I would never fire you. Erica, I'll pay for his care so you don't have to worry. Not on your life. She drew herself up to her slight height. I can take out loans. I will take out loans. I cared for him before, and I will care for him again. You're not buying me a second time. Maybe it would be best for Dad. Probably it would be. But he'd die for sure if he knew I let you give me one more penny. Thank you, but no thank you. So long as you'll still have me as an employee, I'll see you at work in a couple days. I'll need a few days of leave to finish figuring things out here. Brock stared at her for a long, endless moment, before silently nodding. Nodding back, Erica exhaled a long, slow breath and walked away. This time, he didn't follow her.
Chapter 12.
I told her exactly what the deal was, Brock muttered, downing another shot beside Jack at the bar. Just like with every other woman, I was crystal clear on the deal. Unusually patiently, Jack sat and drank, just listening. She acted like I'd promised her. I don't know, marriage or something, Brock exclaimed, waving at the bartender for another round. What the hell? Jack continued to sit quietly, and Brock finally exploded. What? Say something. You won't like it. Brock's eyebrows hit the ceiling. When have you ever told me what I want to hear? That's not how this relationship works. Oh, so you're committed to at least one relationship then? Jack said dryly. What is that? It means that you're a good guy, Brock, and you're my best friend, but you're one hell of a selfish son of a. Jack shook his head and took a slow sip of something or other that wasn't a shot. What the hell had he been drinking, while Brock had been downing drink after drink? Meaning? Brock snapped. Meaning that her father could be dead as we speak, and you're making this entirely about you. You walked into that hospital room, and some of the first words out of your mouth weren't, "I'm so sorry, baby. What can I do?" No, you had to make sure she was crystal clear on your commitment issues first. Brock stopped in mid-shot, his anger slowly fading. I didn't even tell you what I said. Jack snorted. You didn't need to. I know you, man. I've known you. I'll continue to know you. And selfish is all well and good. I'm selfish myself. But even I know better than to do what you undoubtedly did. And you did. Didn't you? Brock looked down at his shot glass, thinking of his words to her. You're not alone, sweetheart. I know I told you I'm not into commitment, and I'm not. But that doesn't mean I won't be here for you. I did, he admitted gruffly, having a hard time believing it in hindsight. I was just so panicked. Megan called me, and I dropped everything and ran to be with Erica. And then I got there and she looked so small and broken, Jack. Damn it. He slammed a fist on the bar and waved the bartender's questioning glare away. All I wanted to do was hold her tight and promise her to fix things. I've never felt that way before. Ever. And it scared the crap out of you. Jack nodded, clapping a hand on Brock's shoulder and getting to his feet. I don't want to leave you to drink alone, but I have a date. It felt like the entire world as Brock had known it was imploding from the edges. You? A date? He stared at his best friend, who'd never said the single-syllable word before without making it sound like a substantial curse. With Angie, Jack said sympathetically, shoving a few bills in front of Brock to take care of his tab. Angie? You broke her heart too. Who knows? I might do the same. But I'm going to go try not to tonight anyway. Night, man. Jack walked away, leaving Brock gaping after him through the bar's thick smoky haze. He wasn't sure how long he sat there, before a striking woman appeared beside him. She moved with quiet confidence, her eyes intense and unreadable like a storm just waiting to break. There was something about her presence, poised, bold, that made the air shift the moment she took the stool next to his. Hey, handsome. Brock barely gave her a glance. Hi. You look like you could use a dance, she offered, waving at a corner of the room where some people had created an impromptu dance floor. He shook his head. No. Sorry. Really not interested. Apparently as unused to be turned down as Brock himself was, the woman persisted. I'm Naomi. Love troubles, I'm guessing? Brock rolled his eyes. Not even close. That would involve love, and I have no love in my life. As he spoke the words and saw the sympathy cross Naomi's face, he realized what he'd said. And it was true. He had no love in his life. No family. No friends besides Jack, who most days was hit or miss. Not even any real acquaintances outside of work. What he had was an endless list of women he could contact at a moment's notice for a one-night stand. He had women, yeah. And work. Plenty of that. And money. Tons of it. So much he didn't know what to do with it. Except, he did it. You're right. Brock nodded and got up, gesturing at the bartender. Buy the lady as many drinks as she wants. Any her friends might want too. Put it on my tab. Naomi frowned, defeat sitting poorly on her pretty features. Where are you going? To show some love with the only thing I have a whole lot of.
Chapter 13. 3 months later.
See to it that you get it done. Yes, Mr. Cornwall. Erica sighed as she walked back to the kitchen, her arms loaded down with a tray full of dirty dishes. As she bumped open the door with her hip, the heavy, humid stench of a 24-hour diner in full swing hit her hard. She made her way to the back to drop off the dishes, and as she walked, she tuned out the ache of her back and neck and arms and feet, as she often did, by replaying the final moments before she'd walked out of Brock's life forever. It felt trite and melodramatic now, but at the time she'd felt she had to take a stand when she'd discovered that he'd gone ahead and pried into her father's affairs, somehow illegally finding out what medical treatment he needed, then paying for it. Even after she'd specifically told him not to do it, he had, and that had been the last straw. She told him so at the office, in front of half the eavesdropping staff, watching the stunned look cross his face before she'd walked out and never gone back. I wouldn't mind a billionaire of my own, Gabby, her only friend at the diner, quipped as she and Erica crossed paths, she on the way to the kitchen, Erica on her way back to the main floor. At this time of my night, my feet start screaming for money as much as mercy. Erica gave her a rueful smile and went about her job efficiently, bussing tables even though she was ostensibly a waitress. With no waitressing experience under her belt, the only way Cornwall had hired her had been when she swore to do anything at all. Brock had paid for her father's bills, and there had been nothing Erica could do to change that. Frankly, it would have been stupid to try after the fact. Her father was getting the best possible care, and even then there were days when he was doing well, then there were days when he was back at death's door. Every time she thought that he was going to pull through and be able to go home with her, something would happen, and his health would take a turn for the worse once more. It seemed like a never-ending nightmare that she could never wake up from. But though Brock had paid for all the bills he'd assumed would come with treatment, he hadn't realized the extent of the care. Those were the bills Erica now labored to pay off. She'd started by selling her car, and now caught the bus to work. Regular night shifts, and she just barely managed to keep a roof on her head and the extra medical bills up to date. Food was a hit or miss, but she rarely wanted any after scraping people's leftovers all day. That had been Conwall's deal. He'd hire her, and he'd pay her marginally better than minimum wage, but she would do anything from scrubbing toilets to waitressing. And she did. A group of rowdy customers walked in, and Erica rushed to wash her hands before going to attend to them. "Gentlemen," she greeted them as cheerfully as she was able. "What can I get started for you this evening? Some coffee?" The largest man in the group, a good 300 pounds, at the very least, gave her a slow once-over, and Erica groaned inwardly, knowing exactly how this was going to go. "I know what I want to get started, sweet cheeks." Keeping her smile grimly in place, Erica repeated, "Coffee? I just made a pot. Why don't I go ahead and bring you all some?" "That's not quite what I had in mind," Lardo said slowly, his gaze lingering thoughtfully on her. "That something is taken," she replied with as much false warmth as she could muster, and waving her hand with its fake wedding band. Sometimes that did the trick. Lardo laughed uproariously and slapped his friend on the back, almost sending him straight into the sugar stand. "Bring us coffee, sweetheart." Swallowing a sigh of relief, Erica turned to go, only to feel a hard, firm squeeze on her left cheek. It was all she could do not to scream, but she needed this job. Between this night shift and a temp position doing data entry, she was making it. It wouldn't always be like this, she vowed to herself, as she poured 4 cups of coffee with shaking hands and fought the urge to poison them with the toilet cleaner she'd been using earlier. She had interviews. Seemed like next to nobody was hiring, but she at least had interviews. "One day, I'll get on my feet," she promised herself, scrubbing at her eyes with her sleeve before returning to her only customers for the evening. If she was extra nice to them, they might even leave a nice tip. "Here you go. Fresh hot coffee," she chirped, placing a mug in front of each burly man. "I'm quite the catch, sweetheart," said a guy with uneven skin mostly hidden beneath a patchy beard. He leaned in with a grin that was more eager than charming. "Care to see for yourself?" "Married," she said again, waving her hand once more. "My husband gets awfully jealous, and you boys wouldn't want me to get in trouble at home, I'm sure. Now, what sounds good for dinner?" There was a jingle behind Erica, and she called out, "I'll be with you in just a minute. Have a seat anywhere you'd like," before looking at her customers. "I'd like to eat you," Acne informed her, his eyes directed to the apex of her thighs. She clenched her hand around her pen, praying for control of her temper. "Our blue plate special is blackened catfish and a side of jambalaya. I highly recommend it." "How much for a taste?" Lardo pressed, darting a meaty hand out for another hungry squeeze. "Honey, I am way too expensive for you," Erica said sweetly, praying that her slip of the tongue didn't elicit a tantrum. Instead, he seemed to not even hear it, so intent was he on feeling her up no matter where she stood. And if she moved to the left, Acne was there. If she moved a little further, the silent men she dubbed Red Nose and Yellow Teeth took their turns. At her wit's end, she heard the jingle again and turned, not seeing anyone. Apparently, her other customer had been uninterested in waiting around. Erica glanced at the clock, 5:45 a.m. She just had to make it till 6:30. Pasting a sickening grin on her face, one she felt all the way to her gut, she refocused on her table and on trying to get some kind of a dinner or breakfast order out of them, without stabbing them all with the surprisingly sharp butter knives.
Chapter 14.
Brock racked the last weight and headed for the shower, every muscle in his body aching. As he scrubbed off, he ran over his mile-long list for the afternoon. The new personal assistant he'd hired was a competent kid and kept him on track most of the time, but some days even Adam couldn't keep up with Brock's jam-packed schedule. Ever since losing Erica, because he'd long ago realized that that was exactly what her departure had been. A total loss for him in more ways than one, he'd buried himself up to his neck in more work than he'd seen since he first started the business. The only time he gave himself a break was at lunch, where he allowed for 20 minutes or so to eat, and a full hour to work out. It was the only thing that was keeping him marginally sane, even if he came in at 7 a.m. or stayed till 10 p.m. to compensate for that time. He designed the gym so it had actual closets instead of just lockers, and one of those closets, his own personal one, held fresh suits, one which he now donned before starting toward the elevator and the office once more. As he walked, Erica's face floated before him, and he firmly put it aside. For weeks, he'd been furious at her for humiliating in front of his whole office for doing something nice. Something he thought he'd done out of love, until Brock had finally realized that Jack had been right all along. Bribing people to get information about Noel Sampson's necessities had really been more about assuaging his own guilt at his behavior. He'd brought Erica on, seduced her. Even if there had been two to that tango, he knew very well who had been the more experienced and manipulative of the two of them, and then broken her heart at a time when she'd needed her whole focus to be on her father. Then he'd done it a second time, trying to buy his way out of relationship prison, and she'd called time on him so fast that his head was still spinning. He missed her, Brock reflected as he walked into the office, straightening his tie. Missed seeing at her desk. Missed seeing her in the conference room and the hallways. Missed watching her walk by his office, totally focused on some errand or other. Earth to Brock. He jolted back to reality, seeing Angie standing before him with an exasperated expression that suggested she'd been trying to get his attention for a while. Sorry. What's up? She nodded at his office. Can we talk in private? Surprised, Brock nodded. Sure. Come on in. He held the door and followed behind Angie as she walked inside. He closed the door and started to take a seat when she stopped him, holding out an envelope. Confused, Brock took it and stared down at the printed label. Angela Varvatos. Letter of resignation. Angie, he said in shock, looking back up at her. What? Why, okay, I didn't see this coming. You haven't seen anything coming since Erica left, Angie informed him wryly. You're lost, Brock. Own it. Oh, I do, he muttered, dragging a hand through his hair as he looked at the envelope once more. Believe me, I am fully aware that my path got lost 3 months back. Why, Angie? Why are you lost, or why am I quitting? She didn't give him a chance to answer. I was a total pain to Erica. Did you even notice that? No, he admitted. I didn't. She nodded. You're the best at your business, but you suck at human relationships, Brock. I'm really not much better, which is one of the reasons I'm leaving. Life is too short to be playing the jealous games I'm good at. There's gotta be more. Jealous? She rolled her eyes. Duh. I wanted to hand this personally to you, for 2 reasons. 1, because you were a good boss. A bastard of a guy, but unintentionally for the most part, I think. And 2, because I might be able to help you out. Help me out with what? He asked tersely, getting tired of being put in his place so often by so many so recently. He'd already admitted his mistakes. The world could now stop throwing them back in his face, thank you very much. I bumped into Erica last week. Brock turned from his desk, where he'd been about to walk over to. What? Something inside him that had been dead for months roared to life, and it wasn't his libido. Not entirely, anyway. I saw her accidentally, and I've been debating ever since whether I should let you know, Angie replied. Brock was over at her side in 2 seconds flat, his hands on her shoulders. Angie. Where is she? I have to know. She won't answer my emails or my texts. Her landlord has no idea where she went. All my money won't get me answers about where she's staying, even when I have an idea of what facility her father is being treated at. And you really, really want to know, huh? Angie mocked him slightly. Because the girl stole your heart from the minute she walked into this office. I'll tell you, but on one condition only. What? He said desperately. Anything. You want a nice severance check, even though you're not being fired? Done. I wouldn't mind that, she said with a laugh, but you've got to quit with throwing money at people who care about you. We'll still care, even if you don't shove cash our direction, Brock. For the first time in his memory, Angie's eyes were soft, instead of hard as flint. And I do care about you, even if you're so lost in your misery that you don't even notice this. She lifted her hand, displaying a prominent engagement ring. For a moment Brock just stared at it, before it looked back at Angie's face. Jack proposed. She nodded. Maybe I'm going to end up with him, where I did with you. Maybe not. But I'm going to take the risk that I won't. Say it, Brock. It was her turn to put her hand on his shoulder, as he tried to come to terms with how he'd tuned the world out so completely that even his best friend's very serious relationship had escaped him. Just say the words about Erica, and I'll tell you where she is. I love her, he blurted out, the words that he'd so feared for so long, falling out so naturally that when they did, they seemed to hang in midair. Angie, I love the woman. I need her like I need to breathe, damn it. I broke her heart, and then she carved my own out with a spoon. Angie smiled. Think you can tell her that without all the four-letter embellishments? Girls think it's more romantic without. Just saying? Yes. Tell me. When she did, Brock lingered only long enough to hug her hard, apologized for being a total jerk time and time again, and then booked it out of the office, calling out to Adam as he ran past, "Cancel everything for today." He had an appointment that mattered more than anything else on the agenda. In fact, he had a totally new agenda. It involved telling the woman of his dreams that she was his everything.
Chapter 15.
Erica. She sighed and looked up from the pan she was scouring to a shine, seeing the sympathy etched on Gabby's face. I don't think I want to know. Lardo's back. Alone this time. And he's asking specifically for you. Damn, Erica yelled, dropping the clean pan back into the sink with a loud clang. He's been here 6 days in a row. I'm going to run him through, Gabs. I swear. Murdering customers is inadvisable, Cornwall said dryly, and Erica jumped and spun, not having realized her boss was in the kitchen. Sir. I'm sorry, she stammered, blushing to the roots of her hair. Just get out there and show that man as good a time as is legally possible, her boss ordered, stalking away to harangue the chef about something or other. You said you have an interview this Friday, right? Gabby said, as Erica fought the urge to scream and simultaneously cry. Yeah. This is the last one at the accounting firm. I don't know why they'd have any interest in me, with no practical experience, but I guess the internships and the few months at Brock's office count for something. Saying his name hurt as always, but Erica didn't let it stop her. She scrubbed her hands clean, put a clean uniform blouse on from the stash she kept in the break room, not that she ever got a break, and headed out to do battle. Lardo's enormous face split into a huge grin as she walked over to him and stood with her pen poised over her pad, keeping as much of a distance as possible between them. Ain't you going to say hello, sweetheart? She clenched her jaw with a smirk. Well, hello, sugar. He definitely had the bigger build. Lardo laughed so hard his fat rolls jiggled. You're so feisty. I betcha you'll taste better than those pancakes you keep making me order so I can stay here night after night. More of the same? She asked tersely. How about a kiss? He countered. Just one little peck, maybe on the pecker. Erica broke. Without a word, she turned, grabbed the remains of a pot of coffee on another table, one which she knew had been cooling for at least 20 minutes, and appended it over Lardo so abruptly that it took him a second to process the lukewarm fluid dousing him from head to waist. Put your pecker in that, you sick, disgusting excuse for a human being, she snarled as he started to howl in rage. I quit. She walked straight out the diner door and stood there for a second, fists clenched, breathing in the cold night air before turning in the direction of the bus station. As she did, she saw him. Brock stood a few feet away, his suit so crisply pressed that Erica briefly wondered if it was 9 a.m. instead of 4 a.m. He looked exactly like he had the day she left the office, with several additional pounds of muscle added to his frame, and a slightly shorter haircut, both with only served to make him even more masculine. The man was walking temptation, plain and simple. "Why are you here?" she cried, trying not to stare into his incredible eyes or notice how soft the slight smile on his lips was. "How did you find me?" "I watched that whole scene go down," Brock said quietly, not making a move toward her. "Just stood here and watched through the window as that fat ass put you through hell." She blinked, her temper cooling abruptly, mostly due to a bucket of confusion that doused it. "You did?" "Yeah. One of the hardest things I've ever done was not intervene. But I didn't, because you don't need rescuing, Erica." This time he did take one step in her direction. "That's been one of my mistakes all along. I keep trying to save you when you don't need saving. You're the strongest person I know. Nobody needs to bail you out of anything." A knot formed in her throat so she couldn't force out any words as he continued slowly in her direction until he was directly in front of her, so close that she could see the bags under his eyes from obvious lack of sleep. "Another of my mistakes was treating like you were disposable. Like you were just some girl at a club I could pick up and then go my way." A tear trickled down her cheek and she looked away. Brock's gentle hand reached out and turned her back to face him. When she did, the look on his face took her breath away. "Yet another of my mistakes was trying to buy you. Angie pointed that one out to me. You don't know too much about my family, but let's just say I got the idea that you had to bribe people to stick around," he said quietly. "Not that that excuses anything. You specifically asked me to stop, and I kept doing it like the fat guy in there, only with cash." At that, Erica managed to force out a few words. "You were an ass, but paying my father's medical bills hardly makes you lardo. But my biggest mistake of all," Brock went on, "was letting you walk away without a fight. So I'm here to fight, Erica. And I'm going to keep fighting, until you agree me a second chance. To give us a second chance." "Us?" she repeated, her voice suddenly cracking. "There is no—" "Yeah, there is. There always was, from the time I hired you. We were a team in the office first, and then after that date, there definitely was even more. I just refused to see it. But I see it now." Another tear slipped down her cheek, and he leaned in to very gently brush it away with his lips, so gently that she trembled. "How's your dad?" he asked. Surprised, Erica murmured, "Doing all right. He has highs and lows. I should apologize, too. He'd be dead if you hadn't helped us out financially, Brock. I'm sorry. Whatever your reasons were for giving me the money, it was still beyond generous. Thank you." "How are you?" he asked, scanning her weary face. "Burnt out," she admitted. "But I have a final job interview with Nico and Henderson on Friday. I think I may finally have a place at a job where I can actually use my degree." The smile on Brock's face melted the ice that had surrounded Erica's heart for months, and she sagged forward a little, just enough that he placed a hand on her waist. "Good for you. I don't know how to say it without sounding condescending, but I'm proud of you, Erica. You'll knock 'em dead." She smiled, feeling the warmth spread outward from the touch of his hand and sincere words. "Thanks. I'm proud of myself, frankly." And then she hugged him hard. She didn't overthink it, she just did it because this was the man she'd loved for what felt like forever, and he finally felt like he was on an even footing with her. Not a billionaire. Not her boss. Not her seducer. Just a man who had opened himself up to her, and even asked about her life. A man who had let her fight her own battles, and cheered her on when she won. Brock's arms folded around her tightly, and she leaned in closer, melting into the familiar heat of his embrace. "Gosh, I miss this. I missed you so much." "I missed you," he whispered in her ear. "And I love you, Erica." "I love you," she whispered back, lifting her head to look into his eyes. "And next time, I give you permission to intervene if a jerk is trying to feel me up." Brock laughed and framed her face with his hands. "I promise I'll pound anyone who tries into the ground. I love you." He kissed her again, and then again, and then again, until Erica's weariness had completely burned away, replaced by the heat of Brock's hungry, tender kiss. "I love you. I love you," he whispered. "I love you now. I'll love you tomorrow. I'll love you forever. Give me 6 months, and I'm going to ask you to marry me, Erica Sampson." "Why 6 months?" she asked giddily, matching him kiss for hungry kiss, almost climbing him in her need to be closer to him, skin to skin. "Because I'd like to do some things differently in my own life, things that'll make you proud of me too," he said simply, before lifting her in his arms, carrying her to his car, and then whisking her off to his apartment and to bed. And she knew without a doubt that when he asked someday, she'd say yes. The end.
Sneak peek for Dirty Money. We hope you enjoyed listening to The Assistant by Michelle Love. Now please listen to a sneak peek for Dirty Money by Michelle Love. Collateral damage.
"It looks like it might ruin," Alora thought as she idled at a stoplight. She waited for the green arrow to signal so that she could turn into the parking lot where she worked, becoming more frustrated with each passing moment that the road on both sides stayed empty and that the light stayed red. "Come on," she mumbled to herself. "I'm gonna be late." Finally, mercifully, the green arrow appeared, and she turned across the wide street into a sloped parking lot outside Tackleman's, the grungy sports bar that had helped her pay her bills for the past 2 years. The gravelly noise in her engine was back, she noticed, as she situated herself in her favorite parking spot. "It's just because it's cold," Ollie told herself. She couldn't afford any significant repairs. The dated blue Accord was on its last legs, and she was firmly in denial about it. It wasn't like she had the money for a new car. Twisting the keys out of the ignition, she snatched her black canvas serving apron off the floor from under the passenger seat, amidst an array of discarded receipts and crinkled plastic water bottles. The door creaked as she opened it, and again as she slammed it behind her and manually locked it. The air was crisp and cool, making her snuggle into her fleece-lined hemp hoodie as she crossed the mostly empty parking lot. "Great," she thought as the chill bit the tip of her nose, "another slow night." The front door, a heavy scuffed monstrosity with fading brass handles and a white Tackleman's decal peeling off from the dingy windows, groaned as she yanked it open, and a blast of heated air warmed her chilly cheeks. Inside, feel-good music played quietly on a constant loop in the dimly lit bar. Tackleman's boasted 36 beers on tap. They were usually out of about 12 of them. A full wet bar, all house liquors, loomed behind a colossal wooden bar plastered with tacky sports memorabilia, flickering neon signs, and celebrity mugshots. Worn tables, most with an aged and peeling finish, were scattered around the bar in a sort of wherever it fits it goes design. A low stage sagged into the back corner, near a small, pathetic excuse for a dance floor. It was usually lonely, except for the wretched weekend nights when local bands of graying wannabes did their best to rupture Ollie's eardrums. "Hey, Ollie," a baby-faced blonde called out, galloping up to the front of the bar with an enthused smile. Damn it, Ollie thought. She had really been meaning to learn the new host's name. "Hey," she said vaguely with a half-smile, hoping the girl wouldn't notice that she hadn't said her name back. She didn't. The girl just rested her elbows on the weathered wooden podium used as the hostess stand. The dusty chalkboard on the front advertised the daily specials in colorful chalk, and whoever had done it that day had some very big, very loopy handwriting done in pink. "Long time no see. Am I right?" Blondie tried for a lame, over-friendly joke. Ollie wanted to roll her eyes, but resisted the urge. "But hey, look. You've got a really good section tonight." "Yeah, I would hope so. I told Napoleon they first would come in early and close tonight," Ollie said, peering over the host stand to scan the table chart. 5 tables, all large, somewhat clean booths near the bar, plus whatever came in after everyone else was cut. She could work with that. "Hopefully it gets busy, I'm so bored," the other girl whined. "Yeah," Ollie replied bluntly, breaking off the conversation and making her way past the bar and around the tables to the back. Some Tackleman's guests weren't even sure the bar had a kitchen because it was tucked way back in the far right corner. There was a short metal expo line where the kitchen served up the food. Around the corner, it opened to a semi-cramped kitchen that had probably once been pristine and white but was now stained, yellowed and dirty. One by one the on-duty cooks acknowledged her, their greetings ranging from "Yo, Ollie" to a sultry "Hey, girl," and she nodded or waved in return. Most of them had worked there as long as she had, and some were even like family. The kitchen backed up to another partial wall, behind which were the manager's office and 2 rows of coat hooks for the staff. Several jackets and various sizes of backpacks had already been hung from the hooks, and Ollie wriggled out of her sweatshirt and hung it off one of the hooks on the lower rack. She tied her apron around her waist, securing the strings with a double-knotted bow under her belt buckle and tucking it under the flap. She checked her pockets, coasters on the left, an order book in the center, and a cluster of pens on the right. She was good to go. The door to the manager's office was most often closed, but not on that night. Through the opening she heard a familiar voice call out, "Ollie, is that you?" The nasal utterance grated on her nerves. She took a deep breath and rolled her eyes, then crept up to the door and peeked around into the office. As per usual, it was tiny, cramped, and the desk was littered with papers. Shelves on the walls were packed with books and binders, and there were 6 huge bottles of pineapple vodka, left over from another promo flop, crowded in the back corner. A very short, very thin, very pockmarked man in a stiff, charcoal gray button-up with a pair of wiry glasses sat in the bulky, black office chair, typing furiously on a keyboard attached to a clunky desktop monitor. "What do you need, Eric?" she asked, the airy, pleasant professionalism in her voice masking her deep, preoccupying loathing for the tiny man and his huge attitude. "Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for coming in and helping me out tonight. We had 2 servers call in tonight, if you can imagine that, and as always, I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and being such a team player." Eric said it all without looking away from the screen. The lack of eye contact only added to the professional, yet wildly insincere tone that he always seemed to have. "Yeah, of course," she replied. "You know me, I need the money." "Yeah, art majors usually tend to need help with that." "Yeah," she replied bluntly. "Can you come clock me in?" Eric stood and Ollie, at only 5'7", could see straight over his head. His height, or lack thereof, coupled with his hair-trigger temper and inflated self-importance, had earned him the nickname Napoleon among his staff. As they walked together back up to the point-of-sale computers, Ollie nursed her battered ego. She wished his playful jab at her chosen career path still hadn't damaged any hope she had harbored for making it as an artist, but after the show that weekend, there wasn't much left there for him to damage. Truth was, she was coming up on 3 years of learning to draw and to paint, which colors to do it with, and which artist was responsible for every painting. 3 years of late nights spent sketching, erasing, resketching, smudging, coloring, color mixing, painting, and swearing. 3 years of smudged fingertips, washing brushes, and praying countless stains come out in the wash or the shower. In 3 months, when she had walked across the stage to receive her fine arts diploma, she knew that she was walking into an unforgiving world whose approval she would need if she ever hoped to pay her rent. Sure, she had known that going in, but she hadn't really known it until she'd put her heart and soul up on the walls in front of gallery owners and private buyers, and walked away with only $60 and not a single showing contract. It had been 5 days since the show, but the wound still sucked at her gut like a raw, angry hunger. "I'm going to be waiting tables forever," Ollie thought morosely. She pictured herself as an old woman, with liver spots on her pale, slender hands and shots of gray through her inky black hair, serving Irish car bombs to college boys, and her heart sank halfway to her knees. She tapped her login code 8134 into the POS, and a window popped up that read, "Clock and time was 4:30 p.m. "Are you early?" Eric swiped his manager card to complete her clock in, and she was good to go. Ready to serve all of the tables that weren't there. "Awesome. Where's your name tag?" Eric barked, short and snappy like a little Yorkie. With a resigned sigh, Ollie said, "In my pocket." She began to dig it out. "Why isn't it on your shirt?" Eric asked smugly. "It's getting there," Ollie said, locking eyes with him as she fussed with the magnetic back to attach it under her collarbone. Her tone was playful, but her eyes said beware. Eric turned and walked away, an ugly smarmy smile on his little face. Nobody else would be there until 5, and she had forgotten to ask Eric what the new host's name was. Ollie didn't really want to talk to her anyway, so she wandered around the restaurant wiping crumbs off chairs with a wet rag, refilling the already full ice bin, brewing new tea they probably didn't need, anything to keep her mind off her failure as an artist. Not a failure. She chastised herself for her negative self-talk. A lot of the greats didn't make it big at first. The thought perked her up a little bit. It was true, a lot of stellar artists weren't big and famous right off the bat. She was only 22, she had time to get better, right? A sinister voice nagged at the back of her head. A lot of the greats still didn't make any money either. The next few hours dragged on. There was supposed to be a pot for the football game at 7, but at 7:45, there was still only about one table per server and a few bearded men cluttering the bar. Ollie had only made $13 in almost 3 hours, and once again she regretted helping Eric out. She practically lived there, especially on the weekends, and she was beginning to wonder if she should try to find another job. As if on cue, about 4 minutes to kickoff, a small herd of men in team colors lumbered into the bar. They yelled, high-fived, back-clapped, and whooped as they all blazed past the host stand and began seating themselves at random around the bar. Ollie exchanged looks across the drink station with Brittany, a beautiful, full-figured Latina who was probably Ollie's only real work friend. They rolled their eyes in sync. The two of them straightened out their aprons, allowing the men to settle themselves in as the other 3 waitresses hovered around as they all readied to strike. 3 of Ollie's booths filled up, and she started at the furthest, number 11. "Hey there, guys." She switched into server mode, perky, smiley, and just a little bit flirtatious. "I'm Ollie. I'm going to be taking care of you. What are we drinking?" The order, 3 Coors Lights and 2 Jack and Cokes. The second booth at table 12 was full of older, overweight married men who leered at the low V neckline on her work shirt. They ordered 2 pitchers of beer and a round of fireball shots. She shuffled down to table 14, ready to gear up her spiel and take some more orders, but suddenly her breath was sucked away. There were 4 men at the table. The first man had a rough beard and wore a classic plaid flannel, semi-hot in a hipster lumberjack sort of way. The second man was clean-cut, blonde and baby-faced, wearing a crisp Oxford. The third had a mess of unruly bushy hair escaping from an upside-down and backward sports visor. He was wearing a hockey jersey for some reason. But the fourth man was a dream come true. Even though he was sitting down, she could tell he was tall. Ollie had always been a sucker for tall guys. He was long and lean with great posture. He wore a fitted Henley that hugged his thick, athletic arms. The thin fabric strained against his swollen pecs. He had that brownish blonde hair that women paid good money for, but Ollie was sure it was natural. His golden hair was barely brushed. Thick prominent brows framed a stunning pair of practically gold hazel eyes. His full lips were twisted in a predatory grin, as those gold eyes bore into her so intensely that Ollie couldn't breathe. Something about the man struck her to her core. The spell was broken thankfully when Visor Boy leapt up. His knees jostled the table, he pumped his fist in the air, yelling, "Woo doggy!" "Yeah. Go boys, go boys." His fist pump narrowly missed Ollie's head. The sudden commotion distracted her, and gave her heart a different reason to race. Golden eyes still watched her before he chuckled slightly, and she felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Sorry about that," he apologized with a smooth British accent. Of course he has a British accent, Ollie thought lustfully. "Oh, it's no problem," she stammered. "I'm Ollie. I'll be taking care of you guys." "Well, that's a weird way to spell it," Visor Boy cut her off, leering at her name tag. "Isn't that a boy's name? Like Ollie?" "Usually, yeah," Ollie replied, hoping to make her irritation sound lighthearted. "So, can I get you guys something to drink?" Lumberjack wanted a Sam Adams, Babyface got a gin and tonic, and Visor Boy got a double Jack and Coke. Golden Eyes asked how she got her name. "Oh, she stuttered. "My real name is Allura, like Aurora, but with an L in the middle. But I end up getting called Laura a lot, and I just prefer Ollie. Beautiful, his sensual accent purred. And so unique. I like it. Could you get me a short stout, and a shot of Jameson? Which stout? We have. He cut her off. Surprise me. The way he said it, the wicked gleam in his eye, the sensuous curl to his lips, and that voice. Ollie wasn't usually one to get so starstruck by men, but she wanted to surprise him with so much more than just a beer. She tapped away at the pause. Thankful she had written everything down before Mr. British scrambled her brain. Brittany walked up behind her, flicking overflowed beer off her manicured hands. She examined her precious fake nails, currently Tiffany box blue with sparkly silver bows ironically adorning her third fingers. Hey Brit, Ollie called, wiggling her fingers in front of the screen. Yo, Brittany joked in her fake chola voice. In more of a commanding tone than she meant to use, Ollie ordered, "You have to run my drinks to table 14. An instant glare moved over the other waitress's overly made-up face. Why? Do your own job. Because there's a guy there. He's built, attractive as hell, and British. Oh honey, consider me there." She sashayed her voluptuous buttocks over to the bar to snatch the drinks before someone else could. Ollie laughed and shook her head as she finished ringing everything up. Ollie began filling 15 glasses of water, hoping to keep everyone at least a little sober. Cutting people off was a hassle that she wasn't feeling up to. She took them to her other tables first, ensuring that Brittany could get in on the eye candy. Then she took some orders for potato skins, hot wings, and fried cheese. She walked straight past table 14 when she saw Brittany at the computer. If she'd been paying attention, Ollie would have noticed the dreamy British hunk watching her like a hawk. So what do you think? Ollie asked Brittany with a wicked smile. Oh my girl, total 10. Get his number and send me pictures when you do him, Brittany said. She waggled her perfect, penciled-in eyebrows and bumped her hips against Ollie's suggestively as she worked the computer. Oh whatever, Ollie laughed. Guys like that don't leave me their number. Guys like his weird buddy in the visor leave me their number. And I am not going out with him. She shuddered at the thought of spending an evening with that buffoon. Brittany clucked disapprovingly. Next time you go shopping, make sure you find some confidence that fits you, girl. You could totally bag that. Oh damn, some dude's waving me down. Creep, she muttered under her breath as she wandered off toward an acne-ridden blonde who was staring her down as though she were a chunk of meat. Gotta love the bar business, Ollie thought. Appetizer orders in, Ollie took another trayful of waters back to table 14, where she was actually grateful to see the men all invested in the game. Here are these for you guys, just in case, she said cheerfully as she arranged the glasses in front of the 4 men, snatching away the Brit's empty shot glass. The TV was behind her, and none of them looked away except for golden eyes. His smoldering stare made her feel warm, almost feverish. Thank you, he politely said. When no one else budged, he spoke a bit louder to his friends. Thank the lady. The 3 of them seemed to reanimate from their dumbstruck sports faces, and a chorus of quiet, habitual thanks was heard around the table. So, are we eating? Or? Before she could finish, Ollie was once again cut off by Visor Boy. Heck yeah, let's get some wings. Like a butt-ton of wings. Dylan, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm sorry about him, Miss Ollie. The way Golden Eyes said her name with a formal title tickled her a little. She wasn't exactly used to manners in the dive that she worked in. I'm Weston, by the way. Not only was it kind of an attractive name, but his accent really gave some body to the W, making it sound almost regal. Nice to meet you, Weston. Ollie could practically feel her nervous knees knocking together. Get a grip, alls, she silently told herself to pull herself together. So, wings? What flavor? What sauces for dipping? How many? What are we doing? There was some grumbling between the men. Clearly no one was prepared, and as much as Ollie enjoyed being in Weston's presence, she did have other things to do. She hoped her anxious jiggling and flicking eyes weren't too noticeable, but finally the conclusion was that they would have 1 pound of medium and 1 pound of sweet and spicy Thai with ranch and blue cheese. She jotted a note on the pad in her order book, promised them it would be right out, and turned to leave. Before she could take even 2 steps away, Dylan raucously called, "Oh yeah, and some shots. Make it a round of Jame-O." Though irritated, Ollie turned, smiled, and scribbled on her pad to acknowledge that she'd heard. Weston glared at his friend, shaking his head and smiling as he brought the glass of thick, dark beer to his lips. Ollie wondered briefly how 2 such different men had become friends. Orders were taken, drinks and food were run to tables, and eventually, the bar settled back into a lull. The waitresses hung out in hidden corners, gossiping, giggling, and complaining out of view of their tables. Ollie's feet had begun to ache, and she was startled to see that it was already halftime. With 11 and 12 managed, Ollie sauntered over to table 14. Though Weston was definitely the highlight of her night, Dylan had wasted no time getting half-cocked on shots, and it turned out that he was even more obnoxious when he was intoxicated. She approached with caution, asking, "Everything all right over here?" The question was met with an enthusiastic woo right into her face. Dylan's breath stank of hot sauce and whiskey. "So I'll take that as a yes?" She was trying for coy, hoping her exhaustion and annoyance weren't showing yet. "We're great," the lumberjack said. "I'm sorry about him. I don't know why he's acting like such a jerk." With the last word, he turned angry eyes on Dylan and kicked him under the table. "Really, it's fine. He's super mellow compared to what usually goes on here. You guys are first-timers, huh?" She directed the question at the group, hoping Weston would answer for them, but unfortunately it was Dylan who said, "Nah, we've been in a few times before but didn't even realize this was like the place to watch the game. You guys got a great setup here." "Oh, you mean all these?" Ollie held her hands out and gestured at their TV collection. It really was ridiculous. There were more TVs in the bar than there were tables. On days when there were multiple games, it actually got super disorienting with all those colorful bodies moving out of sync. "Yeah. Those." There was a libidinous tone to Dylan's reply, and his muddy brown eyes were squarely on her chest. Ollie narrowed her eyes. "Too bad those aren't for public viewing," she spat. Before he could annoy her any further, Ollie stalked away. Some girls thrived under that kind of attention, and Ollie really didn't understand. It just felt so smarmy. The second half of the game sounded like an exciting one, lots of table pounding and drawn-out O's in the dining room. However, Eric had decided to cut the floor so that everyone could get all of their side work done by the time that their tables finished, so then everyone could clear out and stop wasting his labor hours on a bunch of table campers. Ollie rushed around almost frantically, assigning and checking everyone else's little chores for the night and scribbling her messy signature on checkout forms. Fully aware of how much she had been neglecting her tables, she regretfully marched down the row of booths, dropping off checks and hiding her worn-out soul behind a peppy little mask. 11 and 12 were both ready to tab out, thank God, and she approached 14 to find Weston gone. The other 3 men made signing motions in the air, and Lumberjack said, "All on one check." Ollie wondered idly where he'd gone, but was frankly too tired to care anymore. After a long day of classes, studio time, and then a work shift, she was completely worn out. Plus, like she'd told Brittany, it wasn't like anything would ever happen between them anyway, so it wasn't like his being there was going to change anything. Ollie passed out tabs, collected cards, ran cards, returned tabs, and bid all her happy patrons a good night, all without another sighting of Weston. Oh well, she thought. Dylan had paid 14's tab, and Ollie watched him from the pause as he continued to scribble on the receipt long after he should have been finished signing it. "Told you I'd get Weirdo Visor Boy's number," Ollie grumbled to Brittany, who was slipping into her coat to leave for the night. "Bummer girl, I'm sorry," she replied. Suddenly, Brittany perked up, pointing a bright teal finger in the air. "Unless? Maybe British Dream had to leave early on some kind of emergency or something. Jerk over there is giving you his number instead." "Yeah, haha," Ollie's voice was dripping with sarcasm and she rolled her eyes. She hugged Brittany good night and waved at the other girls who were heading out the door. Eventually, Dylan and his friends left too. Ollie walked the row of booths, tucking checkbooks into her apron pockets and balancing cold, dirty glasses in her arms. The bar stank of fried food and spilled beer, and the air was hotter and muggier than it had been before the rush. She carried her mound of glassware to the dish pit in the back. The humidity was almost choking. Water rushed through the pipes, the pressure washing dish machine whirred. It was only 10, so the bar wouldn't close for 2 more hours, but the kitchen had begun shutting down most of their stations. Tackleman's late-night menu, like most sports bars, consisted of just a few low-maintenance fried appetizers, but no one expected it to get busy again. They were right too. Ollie and a tall, ginger-haired bartender named Danielle fielded the 5 men, total, that came into the bar once everyone cleaned out. By closing time, the bar was swept, mopped, vacuumed, and scrubbed from top to bottom, and Ollie had Eric clock her out. "How was your night?" he asked, not looking up as he flipped through the pile of receipts in her checkout. "Another night in paradise," she said with a weak smile. "Did you want this?" he asked, holding up a receipt. "Want what?" she asked, but looking closer she saw it was Table 14's receipt. "Oh, that, no thanks." "You sure?" Eric said jokingly. "You're just gonna ruin poor Mr. He squinted through his glasses, "Weston's night." Ollie's eyebrows shot up. "Is it actually Weston's number?" "That's what it says." Ollie snatched the slim sheet of paper away from him. She honestly hadn't even read what was on the back, and she couldn't believe that Brittany was right. But there it was, a note and 10 digits in a very traditional male chicken scratch. "Weston had to go, but wanted me to leave you his number. You should call him." "I'm not gonna call him." "But you should." "But I'm not gonna." Ollie smiled. She and Brittany sat together in 2 oversized, worn leather chairs inside their local Starbucks. The air smelled pleasingly of coffee, and all around them, people of varying ages, genders, and nationalities tapped away on MacBooks and sipped from white cardboard cups. The seasonal flavors were back, and Brittany practically begged Ollie to get her first pumpkin spice latte of the season. Ollie wasn't usually much of a Starbucks fan, but she wanted to tell Brittany that she was right about Weston. Plus, a peppermint mocha had sounded pretty good. The receipt with Weston's number scrawled on it was wrinkled slightly and sat on the tiny end table between them. Despite herself, Ollie couldn't help staring at it, as though it was magically going to start talking to her. "But you have to call him," Brittany whined. "I don't have to do anything," Ollie said, sucking down some creamy mint chocolatey goodness. "Why would I want to go out with some guy who can't give me his number himself? $10 say the number is actually his weird friend, pretending to be him anyway. But what if he really had to leave? What if he's like a surgeon or something? Running off in the dark of the night to go save lives?" Brittany, with her usual dramatic flair, placed a hand over her heart. "Good, then I'm definitely not interested," Ollie laughed. "Oh yeah." Brittany's face soured. "I forgot you're weird and don't like rich guys." It was true. When Ollie's mom, Evelyn Green, was in her 20s, she had wanted nothing more than to be an actress. She worked hard, slinging coffee and eggs at a diner in the mornings so that she could spend her afternoons on stage, doing plays for small local theaters. During her moving performance as a schizophrenic in The House of Blue Leaves, she caught the eye of a man in the audience. The man was Charles Worrell, a tall, dark, and handsome stereotype with family money who didn't have to try hard to win her heart. 2 years later, they ended up with a lovely baby, Allura Jane Worrell. From the time that she was born to the time she was 14, Allura had lived a wealthy life of big houses, private schools, and nice cars. She hadn't known anything different until her mother came into her room one day in tears, explaining that her father had gone. As it turned out, Evelyn had been so enamored with Charles that she had accepted his plans to never marry. When it turned out after 14 years that having a family was too much of a financial inconvenience, and her father had simply walked out. Some say he moved, some say he just kept himself cleverly hidden, but either way he was gone and Evelyn and Allura were left penniless. The women had pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and got Ollie through public school in a tiny apartment. She and her mother were able to make do. But ever since, she had harbored a bitter dislike for rich men. She had even changed her name. Ollie was determined to never depend on a man, financially or otherwise. Well, what if he's like a plumber or something? Yeah, like an attractive British emergency plumber who saves people from late-night septic tank disasters. The excitement in Brittany's voice was endearing, even though the idea was ridiculous. Ollie appreciated Brittany's vested interest in her love life, but she really hated dating. Plus, that guy was way too attractive to be a plumber. Seriously, Britt, it's probably just his dumb, trashy friend. I'm not letting that guy have my number. Well, fine, Brittany said, snatching the receipt off the table and swiping open her phone. He can have mine. No. Ollie shouted, springing up from her seat and reaching for the little device, as Brittany brought it up to her ear and blocked it with a girly little giggle. Ollie sat back heavily in her own chair with a resigned sigh. She was fully aware Brittany was unstoppable once she got moving with an idea. It's ringing, Brittany hissed, an ecstatic twitter in her voice. Ollie dropped her head into her hands. She was embarrassed for Brittany, who, now that she thought about it, had probably never even felt embarrassed before in her life. Suddenly, Brittany gave an excited little cry and slapped her hand over the microphone. She squealed British. Take it. She tossed her phone at Ollie. She barely caught the sparkly pink phone and shot a giggling Brittany a death glare. Hello? She asked lightly, bringing the phone to her ear. Her heart hammered in her chest. Hello? Is someone actually there? There was a hint of a smile in the smooth British voice, and Ollie's hammering heart was soon met by a flutter of butterflies in her stomach. Yeah, hi, she stammered. Brittany looked on, wide-eyed with glee, and Ollie turned herself sideways a bit so she felt she had some semblance of privacy. It's Ollie. From the bar last night? I think your friend left me your number. She was fully aware, and swollen with instant regret for how utterly stupid and ridiculous she sounded. Oh, Ollie. Great. I was pretty bummed out when I had to step out and didn't get a chance to speak with you again. I was somewhat worried that you wouldn't call. Yeah, well, here I am, Ollie said with a forced laugh. He returned the laugh politely. Yes, here you are. Now, I know this is a long shot, but is there any chance you're free tonight? I'd love to take you out to dinner. Oh, shoot, I actually have to work tonight. And no, she doesn't. Brittany yelled almost directly into the mouthpiece. Ollie covered it and shot her a dirty look. Can you hold for just 1 second? She didn't wait for a reply, she just stuck the phone on mute. Britt? What are you doing? I 100% do actually work tonight. Not anymore, Brittany leered with a Cheshire cat grin. I'm taking your shift, and you're going because he is attractive and British, and you haven't had a date or even a night out in how long? I can't, come on, you know how badly I need the money. No. Stop. You'll make money on both of your doubles this weekend. You'll be fine. You need this time for yourself. You're going. Brittany was right. It had been a while. She unmuted the phone and brought it back to her ear. Well, I guess I got the night off tonight. I'd love to go to dinner with you. Weston chuckled and said, Great. I'll pick you up at, say, 7:30. Sounds great. I'll text you my address from my real number, this phone isn't mine. Excellent. I'm glad to have heard from you, Ollie. The way her name rolled off his tongue made her feel weak. I'll see you tonight. Bye, she squeaked. She hung up the phone and tossed it back to Brittany. Well, I hope you're happy. She smiled back, her full, flawlessly lined lips twisted devilishly. I'm thrilled, actually. And one of these days, probably tomorrow, you're going to be thanking me. Whatever. Ollie rolled her eyes, but she knew Brittany was probably right. If she was being honest, she was pretty excited. What am I gonna wear? Let's go shopping and find out. Brittany winked. The girls tossed their empty white cups in the trash can, gathered their purses, and headed out to Ollie's groaning little Accord. This was a mistake, Ollie thought, once again straightening the hem of her dress. Her raven hair fell stick-straight halfway down her back, her straight-cut bangs brushed her freshly plucked eyebrows. Her fair skin was subtly made up, and her steel-colored eyes lined with subtle little black wings. She wore a high-cut, sleeveless dress the color of an eggplant that hugged her slender body, with an asymmetrical skirt that showed a little more of her long, porcelain thigh on one side than she was used to. Since she was already bordering on tall for a girl, she had tried to convince Brittany that flats were a better option. Britt had simply said, "In a dress like that, heels are the only option." So there Ollie was, teetering slightly on a pair of strappy black wedges. She stood outside her apartment complex, hoping to spare poor Weston the chore of finding her cramped little studio apartment. Her nervous eyes watched the traffic, worrying that he either wouldn't show or worse, that he was going to show up in some flashy rich boy car. The seconds ticked by painfully slow. She checked the time on her phone in her small black clutch for the 100th time, and it was still only 7:24. Why had she come out so early? Suddenly, a car rumbled to a stop near the curb in front of her. The beaten Volkswagen Bug looked like a bulbous little dinosaur. It quite possibly could have been one of the first bugs ever made. The exterior was dinged up and painted sunset orange. The artist and Ollie fell in love with the unforgettable little car immediately. The rest of her soon followed suit when the passenger window rolled down, and Weston ducked his head to look out and greet her. He reached across the interior of the car and pulled the handle. The door swung open, and he tapped the passenger seat, inviting her in. Her heavy shoes clicked against the pavement as she trotted over and climbed in. The worn sun-bleached brown leather covering the seats was soft and had been well maintained. The whole car smelled hearty and delightfully old. Then there was Weston. Even in a simple navy-striped button-down and crisp dark jeans, he looked like a living, breathing GQ cover. His hair was swept back neatly but didn't look too heavily gelled, which Ollie was happy with. Nothing grosser than trying to push your fingers through a sticky mess of gel, she thought. His almost inhuman golden eyes flashed in the last bits of the evening sun. Up this close, Ollie noticed a ring of green around his pupils. And his smell, boy, was it heady. Warm, musky, and manly. His lips were set in an easy-going smile, as his eyes took her in, from her metallic purple toenails all the way up. "You look amazing," he said. "Gosh, your voice is like honey," she thought to herself, suddenly desperate to taste his mouth. "Thank you," she said, bashfully looking down into her lap. "You do too, seriously. I knew I'd have to be standing next to you all night, so I did my best." He set his wide hand with its long, delicate fingers on the gear shift and wiggled it around. His knee jerked as he pumped the clutch, and with a low groan and a pungent blast of diesel smoke, the ancient Bug shifted into drive and then merged onto the street. "I do have to say, I really love this car," Ollie said. "Thank you," Weston said with a wide, genuine smile. "I actually rebuilt it myself. Always had a thing for VW Beetles. My brother and I were big into the slug bug game when we were younger. I always told him I was going to get one when I was older, so that I'd always see at least one in the morning, so I'd have a head start." Ollie laughed. "That's cute. When I saw this one, it was basically a pile of rust, but I saw its potential and well, here it is. Up, running and all." "So you painted it bright orange?" "Yes," he said, abashed. "I thought it would be fun. Don't see many orange ones anymore, do you?" "Haha, no. It's funny though, orange is one of my favorite colors. It's just so? I don't know. Happy." "Happy," he said, nodding as he considered it. "Well, I guess that's the perfect word for it. I'm honestly just happy that it runs." As if to illustrate his point, the car screeched as they pulled up to a stoplight. The brakes clearly weren't as happy as he was that the ancient car was running. "So where are we going?" Ollie asked. The ice still hadn't quite been broken. She was definitely nervous. Weston was not the usual caliber of man she went out with, physically at least. He was so good-looking that she almost wondered if she was dreaming. "Actually, we're not going anymore," he said with a smile. The alarm exploded through Ollie. What do you mean by that? I knew he was too good to be true. I feel for this attractive little trap, and now he's some kind of serial killer. He's kidnapped me. I'm going to die in this little orange bug. Because we're here. The slyness in his eyes acknowledged that he'd heard the mild panic in her voice, and that his little joke had been a success on his end. The adrenaline that had surged through Ollie's veins seemed to dissolve instantly. She gave a shaky laugh, feeling an embarrassed blush stain her cheeks. Weston worked the vintage bug into a parking spot on the side of the two-lane street. As it turned out, he was not a very adept parallel parker. Thankfully, the bug was small, so he was able to maneuver it without hitting the parked cars in front of and behind them. "Wait here a sec," he said, opening the door and stepping out. Ollie watched him curiously as he walked around the front of the bug. It was only when his hand touched her door handle that she realized what was going on. He was opening the door for her. Who says chivalry is dead? She had a fairly active dating life, although not quite as much in the last few months, with her heavy school load and ever-increasing financial demands that kept her practically living in the bar to get by. But no man had ever done this for her. She was thoroughly impressed, and still a little blown away as he took her hand and helped her out of the low little car. Ollie stumbled slightly on her heels, but wasn't sure whether the wedges or Weston's warm smile made her knees wobbly. Those are some straight white teeth, she thought, alarmingly aware of how smitten she was with this man that she knew almost nothing about. Weston had parked in front of a local strip mall, a block-long congregation of small local businesses. Taking Ollie's arm in his, he guided her to a hole-in-the-wall Mexican restaurant that she had never been to, making for an interesting first-date location. He pulled open the door, which tinkled a little bell. He gestured for Ollie to enter before him, and she gave him a small nod, an involuntary smile playing on her full lips. She caught Weston's gaze resting hungrily on her mouth and knew the deep red lipstick was a good choice. The decor was tacky and colorful. Big flashy sombreros, rough oil paintings of Aztec warriors, landscapes dotted with small adobe buildings, and beautiful handmade clay plates covered most of the wall space. Bright fake parrots hung from the ceiling on little metal swings. The paint behind them was deep, golden yellow with ornate white trim along the ceilings and floors. The air inside was warm and smelled heartily of spice and meat, and Ollie immediately felt her mouth water. Weston pulled her chair out for her, earning him even more brownie points. He took his seat across from her and said, "I love this place, it's a little undercredited gem. The family migrated here from Mexico about 15 years ago, if I remember correctly, and they're very cultural. Their food is also all totally traditional and amazing. Best refried beans I've ever had." "Well, I'm definitely excited to try them then," Ollie said, her nerves beginning to relax a bit. The atmosphere there was so welcoming, so full of life, she couldn't take her eyes off the eccentrically decorated walls. "I love the little parrots," she said, pointing to the plastic birds. "They're something, aren't they?" He chuckled. Lowering his voice, he said, "I've actually named them." He pointed from bird to bird, first a green one, then a blue one. "That's Miguel, that's Juan." Then to a red one. "That's Rosalita." Lastly, to the yellow one. "And that's Steve." Ollie couldn't help but burst into laughter. "All those traditional names then, Steve?" Weston shrugged and gave her a wink. "Why not?" Ollie couldn't fault that logic, she thought with a giggle. She shook her head at him, with a playful smile. He was just so charming and funny too, and she could listen to that smooth, lilted voice all day. A short, squat Mexican woman in a frilly red blouse, tight black skirt and flesh-colored hose with clunky black shoes approached the table. Her hair was scraped back into a severe bun, and she wore a large fake flower behind one ear. "Hola," she greeted them, placing a large one-page menu in front of each of them. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked with a heavy accent. "You a margarita fan?" he asked Ollie. "Oh yeah," she replied. "Make it dos margaritas," he said, no shame in his broken Spanish. The little woman nodded with a toothy grin and scampered away as quickly as she had come. So Ollie, The way his beautiful mouth said her name still really got to her. "Tell me about yourself." So she did. Just the bare bones, that she was a waitress full-time and enjoyed it well enough, that she lived alone with a fat gray tabby cat named Bruce, and that she was going to art school. Art school, huh? That must be fulfilling. Interesting too, I bet. Ollie batted the comment away, still nursing disappointment and doubt after the show last weekend, and not really wanting to talk about school or her art. She hadn't even been able to paint for a week, she'd been so distraught. Usually, she did 2 or 3 a week. It's all right, not quite what I'd imagined it would be. Thankfully, before he could probe further, the waitress set 2 massive margarita glasses in front of them. Good thing I'm not driving, Ollie thought. Are we ready to order? The waitress asked, wide smile firmly in place. Ollie wasn't. She actually hadn't even touched the laminated menu the woman had set down before. She was about to say no when Weston asked, "You trust me? I could order for you." Surprised again at his gentlemanly manner, she nodded and agreed, "Sure." His ability to pull off a take-charge attitude without being oppressive really impressed her. She felt like a woman in good care, not smothered. Something she wasn't sure that she had ever actually experienced with a man, but she was definitely a fan. "How about that plate with a bit of your best dishes, señorita?" With a nod, the waitress scurried away, and Ollie's eyes fell back on the handsome man who sat across from her. "Your turn," she said. "Tell me about yourself, Weston." "There's not much to tell, honestly," he said with a semi-shy smile. But it turned out he had plenty to tell. "I work for an internet startup my dad created, which is wonderful, because I get to do most of my work from home. I won't bore you with the details about that though. In all honesty, it isn't a very exciting job. I have a 13-year-old chocolate lab named Titan. He's my little buddy, and quite possibly the coolest dog who's ever lived. We play fetch in the park twice a week. You already met my mate Dylan." He rolled his eyes. "Yes, I sure have. How did you two meet?" "You seem, very different," she said, struggling not to sound offensive. He laughed. "Yeah, you could say that. We met in school. I spent my younger years in England with my mother. My parents split when I was little. Dad moved here to chase some American dream fantasy. Mum passed when I was 15. I'll stop you right there, don't apologize. Unless you're responsible for cancer, I really don't need to hear it," he said with a genuine smile. "But once I moved here, I struggled for a while. I was always quiet, and not very quick to make friends. Long story short, Dylan befriended me, and we went through a lot of our wilder years together and a couple of tough times too. Hard to break a bond like that, even if you've matured faster than the other person, you know." "I understand that," she said, nodding. The guy was deep, and she was entranced by him. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but how old are you?" "I'll be 29 in a week," he replied. "How old are you?" The difference in their ages didn't bother Ollie much. She actually preferred older guys, though 7 years was a decent gap. 22, she answered. "I hope the difference doesn't bother you?" "Not at all, though I would have pegged you to be a little older. 24 or 5. But no, it doesn't matter. You're mature for your age though." "Thank you," Ollie responded with a grateful nod. It wasn't the first time she had heard that. The conversation flowed, relaxed, comfortable, and Ollie had so many more questions. She wanted to learn everything she could about the gorgeous man. Before she could, however, 2 steaming plates were placed between them. Her empty stomach took over. There was hunger in her stare as she took in the assorted plate of glorious Mexican food that the waitress had placed in front of her. "I wasn't sure what you liked, but now you've got options," Weston laughed. He pointed to the food as he described it: 1 cheese enchilada, 1 small chicken burrito, a chili relleno and a beef empanada, all slathered in various sauces, and arranged next to a mountain of refried beans, topped with a sprinkle of yellow cheese and red Mexican rice. It looked and smelled divine, and Ollie thanked him as she dug in. The tastes, the textures, the spices, the stretch of the stringy melted cheese, every single detail fired up her senses, and she couldn't help the delighted moan that slipped out. Weston smiled, digging into his food with nearly the same enthusiasm. Their conversation comfortably stalled as they ate, the vocal silence punctuated by the clink and scrape of silverware against plates. As the wolfing and chewing began to slow, the conversation resumed. The amicable conversation covered their tastes in music, TV, and books. It turned out Weston was an avid reader, and as they pushed the clean plates to the edge of the table, he detailed his specific love for Shakespeare. "I don't know what it is about his work," he gushed. "The man was a genius, really. He managed to capture every human pain, jealousy, greed, betrayal. And managed to make it all into art, you know?" "Yeah," Allie said dreamily. She was lost in his voice, as smooth and sweet as melted caramel. The fact he could speak so beautifully was nothing compared to the passion behind his voice. She had finally met someone else who understood the power and majesty of art, of creation. The waitress approached, taking the plates and offering dessert. Weston insisted on an order of fried ice cream, despite Ollie's complaints that she couldn't possibly handle even one more bite. She narrowed her eyes playfully, shaking her head at him. "You're trouble," she accused. "Why do you say that?" he asked with a laugh. "You know exactly why," she said slyly. Before Weston could reply, and hopefully continue the flirtation, a massive sphere with a beautiful crispy golden crust, drizzled in zigzags of runny chocolate syrup, was placed on the table between them. Despite her bloated middle, she couldn't help the rush of saliva to her mouth. 2 spoons rested in the white porcelain dish, and before long the two warred with their spoons, vying for the bites with the most chocolate and laughing hysterically as they did so. A few minutes later, crunchy bits of fried crust floated in a rich white puddle of melted ice cream. Weston locked spoons with Ollie, his flashy hazel eyes enraptured her. "You know, I have to say, Allura?" His use of her full name sent a shiver down her spine. "I am quite bewitched by you." Ollie dropped her eyes, wishing she could come up with anything to say that would have half the suave or class that he did. "Thank you." Weston paid the tab, which Ollie was grateful for given that she'd had to take the night off work to be here. Though on the other hand, she wouldn't have traded the night for anything in the world. He walked her back out to the car, and opened the car door for her yet again. As she sat alone in the dark, waiting for him to walk around the car, she took a deep, contented breath. The air was cool, the car smelled like old leather. Ollie truly couldn't remember the last time she had felt so ethereal, almost as if she were floating. He hopped in the car, started it up, and after a few semi-concerning pops from the engine and a humble smile from Weston, they were off. Entirely too soon, they were back to a row of short, ugly brick buildings, one of which happened to house Ollie's one-room box of an apartment. Weston jerked the ancient bug to a stop on the side of the road. The engine grumbled as the heat built between them in the tiny car. That margarita had been strong, Ollie thought. She felt a pleasant buzz, enriched by the fact that she was with a man she didn't need to keep her guard up around. "So," he mused. "So," she replied. She had thought he was just being coy, but one of his wide, warm hands was on her jaw, and he pulled her in for a kiss. His lips were soft, and the intensity behind it was flaming. She could have melted into his arms just then. She was no stranger to being intimate on the first date, but this guy was different. She knew she had to bring a stop to it. Make sure he wanted to see her at least one more time before she gave it up. She pulled away regretfully, and couldn't help a little shiver of delight. Every nerve in her body was overloaded, especially the ones that mattered. Weston blinked a few times as if regaining his composure. "I said it once and I'm more than happy to say it again." His silky voice was deeper, huskier. "Absolutely bewitching." Allie smiled back shyly. "Good night, Weston." "Good night, Ollie." Getting out of the little orange bug was one of the hardest things Ollie had done in a while, but she did it. She felt the heat of Weston's watchful gaze until she rounded her neighboring building, the only one visible from the street. As she did, she heard a metallic screech, and then a rumble as the little bug shifted and drove off into the night. The date had ended at a logical place for a first date, Ollie thought, though it was only 10. Without work, she had nothing to do with the rest of her night, but she felt more inspired after her night with Weston than she had in months. She peeled off the tight dress, which was tighter now after all that food. Digging through the dirty laundry pile on the floor near her bed, she found a pair of wrinkled striped pajama pants and a baggy spirit shirt from her college, both of which were spattered with dried paint. The light fabric was soft against her skin, allowing for great ease of movement as she pushed her bright paisley couch up against the back wall to open up the sitting area for her easel. Once set up, she selected a 12 by 24-inch canvas out of the pile of blanks she kept stashed in her storage closet. She prepped it, propped it up in the easel tray, and then it was time for painting. She was feeling very warm. Very red. She squeezed and squirted tubes, and her palette was soon covered with little piles of yellow, orange, purple, and different shades of red. Using her palette knife, she scooped and mixed different colors together, waiting as usual for the color that perfectly fit her mood to appear. Then it did. Crimson and violet with a huge glob of white, she had mixed them and the perfect shade of fuchsia was born. Once the ball was rolling, she couldn't stop. She played music on a low volume, hoping not to disturb her neighbors, and the classical notes swirled around her. Before she knew it, the canvas was covered, a beautiful first layer of fuchsia and red with little yellow and white sunbeams. Though it was beautiful, it had emotionally exhausted her, and she eventually realized it had been almost 3 hours since she started. Time always flew when she painted, but not quite like that. Tired and covered in paint, she began to pack her things away when she heard a buzz from her phone on the counter. Must be Brittany checking how her date went, Ollie thought, taking the time to wash the thick oil paint off her fingers to avoid staining her phone screen. Once they were more or less clean, she scooped up the device and unlocked it. But it wasn't a text from Brittany. It was Weston. "I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again?" Ollie grinned and blushed, happy to know he was feeling the same way she was. She considered her schedule, and the next night she had free was Monday. She typed a quick text back. "Good, glad I'm not alone, smiley face. My next night off is Monday. We could do something then." He replied that it was great, and that he couldn't wait to see her again. She said she couldn't wait either, and to have a good night. His last text came in, making her heart race. "I'm sure it'll be a great night, considering I'll probably be dreaming of you, smiley face." On that note, tired and aware of her long workday coming up, Ollie fell into bed. Curling up in her soft sheets, she was still smiling as she quickly fell asleep. The weekend passed in a blur. It was a busy one, thankfully, so Ollie at least made some good money on her back-to-back 12-hour days. When she could, which wasn't often, she had exchanged flirty texts with Weston, and it was clear that they were both excited about date number 2. That night, she opted for more casual attire. She wore a pair of medium-waisted bell-bottom jeans, with a lace pattern she had bleach-dyed herself down the front. The deep fuchsia peasant blouse she wore hung off both shoulders, accentuating her long neck and pronounced collarbones. The color reminded her of the impassioned painting she had done after their first night together, still drying on the easel in her living room. She'd pulled her hair back, neatly braiding it down her back in a perfect fishtail. Around her neck she wore a wire-wrapped amethyst on a thick black leather cord she had made in her jewelry class at school, and a pair of silver hoops adorned her ears. Ollie was excited for him to see more of her true style, and she was also eager to share her art and things she had made with him. Hurrying out to the curb after a text from Weston, she scanned the empty street for the beaten-down bug. It was nowhere to be seen. The only car that stood out was a shiny silver Aston Martin that looked wildly out of place on her weedy, crumbling, low-income block. Spoiled jerk, she snipped in her mind. Even just seeing the car called up memories of her snake of a father, his equally snaky friends, and their awful fake wives. The selfishness, the obsession with image, and the toxicity that came with wealth were all represented in this gaudy, environmentally unfriendly car. It was disgusting. Suddenly, the window of the shiny car rolled down. Ollie's stomach twisted uncomfortably when she saw Weston in the driver's seat. As she closed the distance to the car, she did her best to justify the car. Her mind spun a yarn to cover for the man she thought she knew. Maybe it's not his. Maybe he borrowed it from a friend or relative. He's probably just trying to impress me. He doesn't know about my family or my money issues. It's all fine. As before, he reached across the car, though this car was definitely wider, and popped the door open from the inside. His smile was wide and excited. He was formally dressed again in a silvery gray button-down and a dark pair of trousers. Ollie tentatively sat down in the seat. The car reeked of expensive leather and premium carpeting. The smell was almost nauseating to her, reminding her of her father. "Hey." Weston sounded very excited. "Sorry about all the flash. I had to spend a few hours in the office today." Ollie's brow furrowed. "Where do you work, exactly?" "Ever heard of the Callaway Building?" Boy, had she. It was a massive skyscraper in the heart of downtown. One of the biggest trade and marketing companies in the nation. "You work there? I thought you worked for your dad." Another sly smile. "I do, my dad is James Callaway." Ollie's stomach dropped into a free fall. His dad was worth a few $1 billion, the last she had heard. If Weston was his son, he probably wasn't worth much less. She suddenly felt suffocated in the fancy car, desperate to get out. At her lack of a response, or maybe trying to remedy the panic in her face, he asked, "So what do you want to do tonight?" "I booked us a table at a formal restaurant downtown. Based on your dress on Friday, I figured you'd be dressed a little more formally. It's not really a jeans type of place. Maybe we could go bowling?" The mention of her jeans was the last straw. Ollie felt silly, like a child, sitting there in her informal clothes. "No," she said firmly. "No thanks. In fact, I'm not feeling well. I think I have to go." She opened the door and made a move to step out, but Weston lightly grabbed her arm to stop her. "No, wait," he begged. "What happened? What's wrong? Let me fix it." "Maybe I'm just coming down with a lack of class," she said snidely. Pulling away from him, Ollie marched away from his desperate cries for her to wait. Rich men were cheaters and liars. She wasn't about to waste her time.
End of sneak peek for Dirty Money, a billionaire romance. Please like and subscribe to support this channel. It helps more than you know.